Hi, I'm Charles with Handicap. The story begins as one of the leaders of a criminal organization stares down the barrel of a gun. His name is Nagashima, and he isn't scared at all. He was the one that gave the gun to the guy, and he explains that he has one himself. The difference between Nagashima and the man, however, is that he doesn't draw his weapon lightly. He reminds the man named Hiroshi that they're having a quick draw showdown, and tells him to shoot him already. Hiroshi is terrified out of his mind as he's trying to protect someone, and he shakes uncontrollably. Nagashima has grown tired of waiting, so he loudly demands for Hiroshi to shoot, and he does. However, the millisecond before Hiroshi can pull the trigger, he finds that a bullet has already entered his brain. Hiroshi is stunned because this means that Nagashima was able to pull his gun and fire it faster than he could pull the trigger on his gun. Nagashima reminds the man that he's part of the Gakuda, and being quick on the draw is his Gakuda skill. Hiroshi was the last of the bodyguards, so that only leaves a woman and a child. Elsewhere, our protagonist Shin walks by a loud and obnoxious businessman. Shin notices a phone falling out of the man's pocket, so he decides to act. Just then, everyone is startled by a loud noise that sounded like a tire just popped, and we see that Shin was somehow able to catch the phone before it hit the ground. Shin politely tells the man that he dropped something, and the guy thanks him for saving his personal phone. Shin is more interested in the guy's phone case though, as it's the limited edition Flash Princess anime one. It's not just a regular one either, it's the super rare Heath model. The guy is stunned to hear someone with so much knowledge about this anime, and it becomes clear to him that Shin is a princess otaku just like him. Shin confirms that he has watched all 17 seasons of the anime, and everyone stares at the weirdos as they simp over the anime girl named Heath. Usually everyone likes the cute characters, but these two are fans of the bad girl. In the anime, there are monsters born of loneliness that prey on people, and Heath is their protector. The heroes want to put an end to these monsters, but Heath bravely stands in their way. These guys are well versed in the anime's lore, and they even recite their favorite quotes from it. The guy's impressed by Shin because he's so young, but he really knows his stuff when it comes to high quality anime. Suddenly, he's caught off guard as Shin starts doing something weird with his face. Shin apologizes and explains that he's incapable of smiling or laughing. He feared that his serious face made it seem like he wasn't enjoying himself, when in fact he loved the princess talk they were having, so he tried to shape his face into the form of a smile. Unfortunately, his facial muscles are super stiff from being serious all the time, so it didn't work. The businessman laughs as he finds Shin amusing, and he gives him his business card. The character for his name is Gakudo, but he introduces himself and explains that it's pronounced Kiwami. Similarly, Shin's character is Ninja, but he says it's read as Shinoa. Before they can continue talking, Kiwami gets a business call, and they part ways. Kiwami hopes that he can talk to Shin about Princess again one day, and Shin thinks that the guy was pretty interesting as well. Just then, a crow swoops down right by Shin's face and says code 334. The governor has been abducted, and Shin is told to take care of it as soon as possible. Back at the warehouse, we see that Nagashima was the one who abducted the governor. She reminds Nagashima that there are serious consequences for messing with a politician, and warns that the police will be coming soon. Nagashima and his men are amused by her threats, but Nagashima fires some shots around her, striking fear into her heart and reminding her who's in control. He explains that she doesn't seem to completely understand the situation. They are the Gakudo, and they don't fear politicians or the police. In fact, it's the other way around. Those so-called authorities tremble before the Gakudo and bend to their will. He reveals that the governor is actually bait, and her purpose is to lure out a certain group. The governor is terrified when she realizes who they're trying to lure out, but it's too late. The sharp crack of breaking glass turns everyone's attention to a window, only to see a strange bullet hole. Suddenly, the governor and her daughter find themselves blindfolded out of nowhere, and they can't hear anything either, as someone has put headphones on their ears. Loud anime music is blasting in the headphones for some reason, and the Gakudo are really confused. Just then, Nagashima's right-hand man Hikichi calls out to him, but everyone is horrified when they see what has happened to him. Hikichi says that he doesn't feel so good, and we see that his head has been removed from his body. He apologizes for failing, and we see that this was Shin's doing. The room falls into absolute chaos, as the Gakudo can't understand how Hikichi could be eliminated so easily, and Nagashima realizes that the group they were targeting is finally here. Politicians and cops do not faze the Gakudo, as they only concern themselves with their nemesis. This nemesis sends terror rippling through the Gakudo, and rightfully so, as an unseen force claims head after head in a merciless display of lethal precision. Nagashima has been waiting for this moment, as this nemesis is a living and breathing folktale in the Gakudo world. Nagashima recites an ancient Gakudo prophecy about what will happen if a person misbehaves in the underworld, but he's interrupted. He turns to find a strange man behind him, and Nagashima's horrified to see that not a single one of his men remains alive. This strange man is Shin, and he finishes reciting the prophecy. It states that if a person misbehaves in the underworld, then the ninja will come calling. Nagashima then gasps in shock when Shin tells him to hurry up and shoot, and explains that the first to fire wins. Instead, Nagashima questions what is wrong with the ninja, and Shin is clearly annoyed that this guy wants to do more talking than shooting. Nagashima is incredibly frustrated as he points out that whenever the Gokudo try to make a living, the ninja always show up and crush them with their insane force. He wants to know why, so Shin looks at the governor and her daughter. Shin's answer is simple: the Gokudo drag kids into their vile crimes, and this cruelty is why Shin can never laugh or smile. Nagashima blames the ninja for ruining everything, but Shin has no interest in talking to him any further. He demands for Nagashima to shoot, so he does, but the bullet's speed pales in comparison to that of Shin. Shin dodges the bullet in an instant and takes Nagashima's head off with his bare hand. Nagashima's in awe of the ninja because Shin didn't have to beat him to the jaw. Instead, he beat the speed of the bullet. However, Nagashima displays confidence that the Gokudo will prevail because there's a certain man that will be leading them. That man will not be him, however, as his body finally collapses to the ground. Shin's attack is called the Blade of Darkness, and he declares that his target has been eradicated. In the morning, some cops investigate the crime scene. The governor and her daughter are safe, and Nagashima's crew were all eliminated. Superintendent Maru calls it a Koden, which means that ninja were involved. The ninja sniff out underworld crimes much faster than the cops can, and they eradicate the bad guys. All they ever leave behind are the corpses of the criminals and the safely secured victims. Modern day ninjas serve no one, and they are not bound by money, power, or the laws of the country. They slay evil according to their own rules, which makes them sort of an anti-hero. One of the investigators can't help but admire them, and Maru can only wonder what they look like. Elsewhere, some of Shin's old classmates spot Shin, and they wonder if they should invite him to a party. One of the guys refuses because Shin never smiles, and he says that's not the kind of person you want at a party. Shin overhears them as they leave and points out that it's not that he doesn't want to smile or laugh, he really just can't. Shin tries to remember when his inability to smile started and how a doctor once told him that it was due to trauma. Shin only has vague memories of his childhood, and one is of a tattooed man brutally attacking someone. Shin sees several people smiling around him though, so he declares that as long as he's the only one that can't smile, then that's all that matters. Sometime later, Shin eradicates more Gokudo, and he curses them for their disgusting crimes. Just then, he stumbles upon some suspicious coupons, and notices that they have a strange smell. That night, Shin goes to see Grandpa Kai. Shin uses his skill to open a soda bottle, and Kai is impressed to see that his apprentice has surpassed him. Shin's attack comes with the sweet tone of the sound barrier breaking, and Kai compliments Shin on having such a masterful blade of darkness. Shin shows him the coupons he found, and Kai can instantly smell the scent of drugs. Paper soaked in liquid drugs that are torn off like coupons that people lick to get their fix. A new drug has been going around Tokyo recently, so Kai believes that this might be it. Shin explains that the Gokudo have been acting weird lately as they have been waiting for him to show up. It's almost as if they stirred up trouble just to have the ninja show up, so Shin is certain that they're up to something. Kai tries to change the mood with a joke, but he's disappointed to see that he's still not able to make Shin smile. Just then, an angry customer complains about an overflowing ashtray, so Kai demonstrates his incredible abilities by taking care of it in a split second. The ninja have protected the people of this nation for hundreds of years, and Kai is one of the 8 Imperial Ninja. Whatever schemes the Gokudo are cooking up, if they cause trouble in the underworld, Kai vows to eliminate them all. The next day, Shin urgently rushes somewhere. He begins to panic when he realizes that he's late, and we see that he came to the princess store to buy some limited edition items that are only available today. Shin has to rush to the end of the line, where he's surprised to meet Kawami. The latest episode of Princess just released, so the two have a lot to talk about. Kawami feels like Shin could be an old friend with how well they get along, and Shin wonders if fate is what had them meet again. After spending way too much money on princess merch, the two agree to grab some lunch. Kawami's enraged when he recounts an epic scene of betrayal in The Princess, and he must hold back tears when he thinks about how Heath persevered in the last episode. Everyone at the restaurant knows Kawami, as he's very friendly and always giving them tips about life. They all have a good laugh after Kawami tells a joke, so Shin tries to join in. Shin didn't want to come off as rude by not enjoying himself like the others, but his face is still incapable of expressing joy. Shin would like to change this about himself, so Kawami has a suggestion. First, he asks Shin if he has any friends, but Shin does not. Kawami explains that the best way for Shin to change that part about himself is by connecting with others. Unfortunately, Shin reminds him that his face never shows any emotions, so it's pretty much impossible for him to make any friends, even at school. Kawami understands now and tells Shin that he will be his friend. Shin is confused as some air rushes out of his mouth, and Kiwami points out that it was a laugh. It was his first time doing one, and Kiwami couldn't be happier for his new friend. Afterwards, the two wish they could finish recapping the entire season of Princess, but Kiwami has to work. They only got halfway through the 17 seasons, but it's okay because they swapped contact information and plan to continue another time. With their hands full of merch, the two guys say goodbye and part ways. Shin wants to go see his grandpa immediately, as he wants to tell him that for the first time in his entire life, he has made a friend. At his grandpa's restaurant, however, Kai receives a message from the crow and determines that he will have to close early today. Elsewhere, Kiwami meets with his driver named Yuzawa, who reminds him that he has a really big job coming up. In the car, Kiwami's expression changes, and Yuzawa points out that his real face is showing. Kiwami then removes his shirt to reveal several tattoos that cover his upper body and the markings of the Gokudo. Kiwami is told that the family is a mess. The ninja are crushing their profits, and the Gokudo are getting weaker. Their younger members are bailing on them and joining non-Yakuza gangs. Yuzawa says that things would be a lot easier if Kiwami stepped up to become leader of the Gokudo, but Kiwami doesn't like that idea, as he really enjoys being a simple office worker. As for his role in the underworld, he's fine remaining as the shadow boss. Kiwami, however, does have a plan for handling the ninja, and we see that it has something to do with the drug-laced paper. Elsewhere, Shin arrives at Kai's restaurant to find that he closed early. At one of the Gokudo bases, two of their factions are at each other's throats. Kiwami enters the room, and we see that he has a completely different demeanor. He was the one that called the meeting, and he introduces himself as the Takamoto Shadow Boss. Outside, we see that Kai has arrived for his mission. He thinks of a good joke to tell Shin, and he is sure that this one will finally make him smile. Inside, Kiwami reveals to everyone that he has come up with a way for them to settle the score with their greatest nemesis, a way for the Gokudo to finally eliminate the ninja. Back outside, Kai acknowledges that he doesn't know what the Gokudo are plotting at this meeting, but it doesn't matter. If they're up to no good, then he will simply wipe them out. Kiwami gives a speech to all the top kingpins in Gokudo about a great victory that they had over the ninja during the Second World War. His speech is incredibly inspiring, so Yuzawa gets emotional as he's grateful to be Kiwami's ally. Yuzawa isn't the only one touched by this speech, as he sees that all the top leaders of Gokudo are dancing in the palm of his hand. They're the top dogs of the Yakuza that run all of Tokyo, but here they are being brought to tears by Kiwami's captivating speech. Kiwami declares that it's time for the ninja's extinction and the age of the Gokudo to begin. He paints a vivid picture of how the Gokudo claw their way up from the shadows of the black market, and announces that their long-awaited age of prosperity has finally come. In the past, it was the ninja who came back from the throes of defeat, even stronger than they were before. They no longer had to rely on blades or guns, as their lightning-fast hands became far deadlier than any weapon. This resulted in the countless deaths of the Gokudo, as resistance was futile. Many of their lives have been taken at the hands of the ninja, so this part of his speech really resonates with the Yakuza bosses. One of them recounts how his father fell prey to the wicked ninja, and another sobs over his boss's life being taken by the ninja, even though he only tortured like 10 people. Kiwami's speech has conjured up all their fears about the Gokudo going extinct, and they're desperate for a savior. Bringing them to despair is exactly what Kiwami was trying to do, so he announces that he has a solution. All the bosses cry with relief as Kiwami tells them that he has a way to finally eliminate the ninja. They all look to Kiwami as their savior and beg him to tell them his plan. Kiwami indulges in the moment, drunk on his own power, as he sees that all the Gokudo bosses have just become his pawns. Basking in his moment of glory, Kiwami prepares to reveal his plan to everyone, but he's interrupted by a horrific sight. Kai has just made his gruesome entrance by taking the heads of several Gokudo, and Kiwami is frozen with shock. Kai has determined that these men really do have an evil plan, which means that he must rain carnage upon them. It's obvious to Kai that Kiwami's the ringleader, and Kiwami can already tell that this dangerous old man is a ninja. Kiwami acknowledges that the ninja really do live up to their reputations, as Kai moved much faster than the eye could see. Kiwami doesn't have a single ounce of fear in his heart though, as he puts a piece of the drug-laced paper in his mouth. Something happens to his body as the veins around his eyes glow red, and he reveals that he was waiting for the ninja to arrive. He tells everyone in the room to watch closely, as he will demonstrate firsthand how the Gokudo will destroy the ninja. Kai recognizes the coupons, but notices that they're not the same, as this one is a different color. Kiwami crosses the red carpet of corpses and thinks very carefully about his opponent. The old man is very nimble, and he attacks swiftly at long range. As long as he can see the old guy, Kiwami is sure that he will win, but he knows that if he loses sight of him for even 1 second, then he will likely pay for it with his life. Kai has a bad feeling about Kiwami and determines that he must eliminate him immediately. That way he can inform the chief and the 8 Imperial Ninja about how dangerous the Gokudo are becoming. Deep down, Kiwami thinks about how he can't die just yet. He just made a new friend named Shin, and he has to meet with him tomorrow to talk about their favorite anime. Likewise, Kai also thinks about Shin. He has been working on a hilarious pun all day, and tomorrow he plans on unleashing it in the hopes of finally making Shin laugh. Elsewhere in the city, Shin finds himself looking at the moon and noticing how full it is. Back at the base, the fight begins with both men charging at each other at the same time. Meanwhile, Shin thinks about what joke Kai will have for him next, as he really liked the last one. He also thinks about his first friend in Kiwami and what other episode of Princess they can talk about. The two people closest to him are in a life and death battle though, and Kiwami just barely manages to dodge one of Kai's attacks. Kiwami is a psychopath as he lets out a grin, and he continues to evade the onslaught of attacks coming from Kai. Kai is clearly a beast, however, as Kiwami loses track of one of his hands for just the slightest moment, and he nearly loses his head. Kai still does major damage, but Kiwami has already closed the gap, and he has Kai in his sight. Shin flashes in Kai's mind in that very moment as Kiwami charges at him and lands a fatal strike. The dagger plunged inside of Kai's skull is not enough to ensure victory, however, so Kiwami finalizes it by brutally shooting Kai several times. Kai's arms go limp, and the Gokudo bosses remark that they have never seen something so incredible. The battle's undoubtedly over, so Kiwami announces that he has successfully eliminated a ninja. The room bursts with applause, and everyone's amazed to see that Kiwami's giant wound is healing right before their eyes. As if his victory was not enough to win them over already, this incredible healing makes them think that Kiwami is capable of creating miracles. Kiwami proudly reveals, however, that this is no miracle, it's actually what he calls the tickets to hell. The drug-laced coupons that they have been selling to normal people are called Heaven's coupons. However, the one he just used is a more enhanced version that he calls Hell's coupon. A single dose invigorates the body to incredible levels. It is what will give the Gokudo the speed and strength to rival the ninja. With equal physical abilities to the ninja, Kiwami is sure that using daggers and guns will put them over the top. The ninja's advantage will be gone, and now the Gokudo will control the world. The room erupts with admiration once again, as everyone acknowledges Kiwami as their path to victory. Yuzawa couldn't be more proud, but Kiwami declares that they're just getting started. Just then, Kiwami gets a strange feeling as he looks towards Kai, but he just brushes it off. His instincts were correct, however, as Kai's still clinging on to his last moments of life. Kai curses the situation as he overheard everything. The Gokudo now have the power that can equal the ninja, and this puts everyone in great peril. Kai sensed that Kiwami was dangerous, but he had no idea just how powerful he would turn out to be. He says that it's up to the 8 Imperial Ninja now to finish what he started. Kai has been caring for his grandson for a while now, and he declares that Shin is the last hope of the ninja. He still needs a lot of guidance, so Kai pleads for the 8 Imperial Ninja to take good care of him. A flashback reveals that Shin was an orphan, and the Gokudo were the ones that took the lives of his entire family. Kai was instructed to raise Shin and teach him to be a ninja who could one day protect the country. The person in charge was cold-blooded though, as he ordered Kai to eliminate Shin if he displayed a lack of talent. Kai paid this no mind, however, and started Shin's training immediately. He decided to start off with the Shinobi hand technique's basic form, and his first words to Shin were to ask him to take his hand. Kai says those words again now, but they were proved to be his last. Everyone in the room then watches as his body begins to glow, and Kiwami's horrified when he realizes what Kai is planning to do. There is no time to react, however, as Kai sets off an explosion, finalizing his death and destroying the entire building. Shin immediately senses something as a shiver runs down his spine, but he has no clue what it was. Back at the battle, Kiwami is shocked to see just how far Kai was willing to go. He compliments Kai for sacrificing himself to ensure the death of all the Gokudo bosses, but Kiwami's unbothered. Those old farts were definitely chess pieces for him, but they were merely pawns. The people he really cared about, called the 8 Gokudo of Destruction, still remain alive. They managed to survive the explosion thanks to the Hell's coupons, and they're ready to destroy the ninja and the entire country. Kiwami's prepared to lead them, so he goes over his plan. The ninja sniff out crime and descend upon it, so Kiwami plans to use that against them. He instructs his men to go rampant with evil deeds in order to lure out the ninja. The ninja will surely take the bait, and that is when the Gokudo will pounce. As for the old ninja he just defeated, Kiwami has his men pick up a few pieces as proof of the ninja attack. Kiwami also wants to send a message, and he has something sinister planned. The next morning, a group of people gather around something on the ground. It looks disgusting, and they wonder if it's some kind of contemporary art piece. It's a dagger that has been placed in a mound of ground meat, and it's already going viral on social media. People think it's a work of art by an unknown artist, but the reality is much more sadistic. Shin is nearby, so he goes to see it, but he's mortified when he sees his grandfather's monocle. The gut-wrenching reality immediately sinks in as Shin pictures his grandfather's face, and he's forced to think about how such a kind man was disgraced. His shock quickly turns to rage, and the sheer force of his wrath makes the crows scatter. With every bit of anger coming through in his voice, Shin tells one of the chatter crows to inform the 8 Imperial ninjas. The Gokudo have taken the life of his grandpa Kai, and he wants revenge. As Shin stands there with his entire world being turned upside down, Kiwami appears out of nowhere. He casually greets his buddy after just randomly bumping into him, and explains that he recognized Shin immediately. Shin has unique looking hair, and his posture is exceptionally poor. Kiwami proudly announces that he just did something amazing at work, so tonight the drinks will be on him. Shin buries his emotions deep down so he can act normal, and he teases Kiwami for looking super lame with a tie on his head. As Kiwami jokes about it becoming a new trend, he notices that the message he left is gone. He determines that the ninja must have come to take it already, so he ignores it, and the two friends go to the bar. Ironically, friendship between the protagonist and her enemy is a series tradition in the princess anime that the guys like so much. They know about all the enemies that the main hero befriended, and there was even one where they didn't know they were secretly enemies while becoming best friends. The conflict that arose when they found out was really fun to watch, as it had everyone on the edge of their seats. Shin does his best pretending to be normal, but deep down he's overwhelmed with hatred. He can't understand why his grandpa's life had to end, and he furiously wonders which of the Gokudo bastards was behind it. Meanwhile, Kiwami thinks about his next steps. He wishes that he knew where the ninja were hiding, so they could attack first, but for now they will have to settle for luring them out. The rage continues to boil inside of Shin though, and he promises to find who's responsible so he can get his revenge. The princess anime has been going on for so long that it has covered every anime cliche. It even has an episode where an old enemy takes the life of the protagonist's master. Kiwami's voice quickly turns to background noise however, as Shin can only think about his grandpa. Kai always loved coffee, but he acknowledged that washing away life's troubles with alcohol is a pleasure of adulthood. Shin is ready to give it a try, but he is still young, and Kiwami tries to stop him. A bit of alcohol still gets on Shin's face though, and just one look of it already has Shin falling over. Kiwami fears for Shin's life as he wonders if he needs a doctor, and Shin is surprised. Kiwami is truly worried about him, so Shin determines that he's a really good person, and he's glad that Kiwami is his first friend. After realizing that he can trust Kiwami, Shin apologizes to him for his behavior and reveals that he just lost someone very close to him. This person was like a parent to him, and Shin loved him more than anyone. This is why he was trying to wash away his painful feelings with alcohol. Kiwami expresses remorse and reveals that he knows just how Shin is feeling. Losing someone important is excruciating, and not even alcohol can drown that sadness away. That is why in a time like this, Kiwami says that the only solution is for him to cry his heart out. Kiwami pleads for him to let his emotions out so they don't overwhelm him, and he allows Shin to cry on his shoulder until his tears run dry. No one has ever told this to Shin before, and after such a horrific tragedy, Shin's tears just begin pouring out. Afterwards, Shin apologizes for being so much trouble. Kiwami insists on getting him a taxi home, but Shin assures him that he feels a lot better now. Kiwami reminds him to drink lots of vegetable juice for his hangover, and the two friends say goodbye. Kiwami thinks about the pain Shin must be feeling right now, and he's shocked when he realizes that even he is crying. A while later, some guys prepare to rob the drunk and passed out Shin. Their efforts are stopped, however, as the ninja uses a blade of darkness to start a huge fire behind them. The thugs run for their life, and we see that someone has come for Shin. Elsewhere, we see that Yakuza has gathered a group of ninja orphans. They are kids whose entire families were eliminated by the ninja. Yakuza took them in, just like his mentor Takemoto took him in. Just then, Yakuza shows his incredible reflexes as he just manages to stop a bullet from hitting Kiwami. Kiwami's disappointed to see that another hired gun has arrived to get revenge on someone else's behalf, and Yakuza assures him that he will handle this guy. The man fires away at the approaching Yakuza, but Yakuza is a terrifying tank of a human being. The bullets pierce his body, but Yakuza doesn't even flinch. It's an incredible display of power, but Yakuza explains that he's actually the least interesting person among the 8 Gokudo of destruction. However, his body's insanely tough, and he chooses to just never stop moving forward. The guy realizes that he made a horrifically bad choice to come here, but it's too late, as Yakuza announces his Gokudo skill. It's called the March of the Yakuza Liner, and his punch hits the guy like a bus. The orphans cheer him on, and Yakuza proudly tells him that a bowl of beef stew is all he needs to heal the tiny scratches that he has from getting shot 15 times. Kiwami tells him to enjoy himself, because later he will put Yakuza to work underground. Elsewhere, the guy that came for Shin presses the buttons on an elevator in rapid succession to unlock a hidden floor. There, a woman welcomes the two Imperial Ninja members back to the crow's nest. The woman wonders if Shin needs a good slap to wake up, but Nodoka asks her to get him a blanket instead. Nodoka has never seen this other guy that's there, so the guy says that he's Zanzo. This makes Nodoka realize that it's the chief of the 8 Imperial Ninjas, and he just wishes that Zanzo would put on his normal face. Zanzo has already been informed about what happened. The number 2 Imperial Ninja is no longer alive, and this makes him furious. He curses the Gokudo, as they have been challenging the ninja for 70 years now. In his rage, Zanzo shows his ability to transform. He declares that they will first uncover the culprit and take his life. Then they will have to find out how they were able to eliminate a ninja in the first place. They might have some kind of secret, and it can mean big trouble for the entire country. Nodoka is amazed by Zanzo's ability every time he sees it, and it's called the Be-All and Do-All. It means that he can become anything and accomplish anything. He is the oldest and strongest ninja, and he has the most unique trait. Nodoka then reveals that he thinks that they have the culprit's identity. Kai's monocle has a gem on it, which actually has a tiny camera hidden inside. Ninja pride themselves on leaving something for their comrades, so Nodoka proudly states that Kai's passing won't be in vain. He is certain that Kai recorded the face of the culprit, but Shiki says that the camera is pretty damaged. Luckily, she believes that she can recover the data, and she will work hard to carry out Kai's last wish. Just then, Zanzo reveals that he has a way to find out how a Gokudo was able to eliminate a ninja. The Gokudo are up to no good again, and he plans to get some information as he knows where they are. They're in the Shinjuku district, in the ruins of the US Forces' secret underground club. For some reason, a Gokudo there is holding 100 of Tokyo's low-level gangsters hostage. A look there reveals to us that this is Yuzawa. Zanzo explains that last night, all of Tokyo's Gokudo kingpins lost their lives in a huge explosion, and Kai was most likely related to it. Nodoka decides to have a look at what the Gokudo are doing at the underground club, but he requests to go alone. Shiki is worried about him, but Nodoka says that he doesn't want anyone else to be in harm's way. He asks her to watch over Shin because he needs to go calm himself down by taking the lives of some Gokudo. Zanzo knows that there's no stopping him because Nodoka was very close to Kai as well. Zanzo isn't worried, however, as he is sure that Nodoka can handle himself. Nodoka is the least experienced ninja among the 8 Imperials, but Zanzo reveals that nobody has beaten him yet. Underground, Yuzawa tells his men to hurry up, as they have almost finished collecting 100 heads. Just then, Yuzawa senses something, and he scolds the orphans for bringing him the wrong water. One of the other Gokudo tries to say that it isn't a big deal, but he is told that Yuzawa knows what he's doing. Yuzawa sends the orphans back to the store, and we see just how many Gokudo are in his group. With the orphans gone, Yuzawa declares that it's time to show the ninja what they're made of, and he tells the ninja that has been hiding to finally come out. It's Nodoka, and he commends Yuzawa for sending the kids away to protect them from the vicious slaughter that's about to take place. Yuzawa noticed that Nodoka waited as well, but Nodoka's done waiting. As Nodoka unleashes his flames, he declares that the Gokudo have been misbehaving in the underworld, so he must exterminate them. The Gokudo have nothing to fear, however, as they now have Hell's Coupon, and Yuzawa tells all his men to take it. Meanwhile, we see that Shin has woken up, and he's rushing to the Gokudo hideout. He's desperate to get to Nodoka because he has a really bad feeling about the situation, and he doesn't want Nodoka to end up like his grandpa. Elsewhere, the orphans are eager to get the correct water for their boss this time, and they bump into a mysterious person. Back with Nodoka, he once again makes his promise to eliminate anyone that misbehaves in the underworld. Yuzawa and all his men take a piece of Hell's Coupon, and Yuzawa asks for Kiwami to give power to the Gokudo. Elsewhere, Kiwami discusses how Yuzawa is the most unremarkable of the 8 Gokudo of destruction, and it could even be said that he's the weakest. However, that is exactly why he's the perfect person for this first mission. If their weakest member can end the life of a ninja with the use of Hell's Coupon, then hope will shine on the future of the Gokudo. This is a battle between the weak and the strong, and Kiwami can only wonder one thing. That is, if the strong will devour the weak, or will the weak sink their teeth into the strong. Back with Nodoka, he formally introduces himself as its proper etiquette to give your name to those you're about to eliminate. Nodoka explains that he's here to avenge his master and uncover the secret of the Gokudo. He announces that he will burn them all alive, but Yuzawa stops him to introduce himself. His goal is to avenge all the Gokudo that have fallen, and he promises to take the ninja's life. Nodoka uses his Blade of Darkness called the Spectacular Bloom of Blistering Heat, and it instantly consumes every single one of Yuzawa's men. The men scream with terrifying agony, and Yuzawa is horrified to see them all fall after just the first attack from Nodoka. Yuzawa fires away at his terrifying opponent, but Nodoka doesn't even move an inch. The bullets don't reach him at all, and they simply get melted away by Nodoka's overwhelming flames. Yuzawa can't even comprehend this kind of power, as he determines that the heat Nodoka radiates is simply too intense for anything to get near him. Nodoka calmly goes on the offensive and sends out a fire attack. This seemingly weak attack actually engulfs Yuzawa's entire body in flames, and he can only wonder what is happening. His mind is spiraling into insanity, but Nodoka reveals that his fire is not his only strength. Nodoka instantly appears before Yuzawa, and he sends his fist straight through Yuzawa's body. Yuzawa is struck by the terrifying reality that he will not live much longer, so he just hopes that the orphans were able to make it out alive. Unfortunately, a look outside reveals that most of them have had their heads removed by the mysterious person. Only one of them remains, but he runs into Shin. Shin can tell that this guy's a Gokudo because of where he came from, and the guy is terrified when he realizes that Shin is a ninja. This guy's name is Ryota, and he can even tell that Shin is a monster on a whole other level from anyone else. The look in Shin's eyes make Ryota realize that he will be losing his life very soon, so he is shocked when Shin simply walks past him. Shin can tell that the kid has never taken a life before, so he says that he doesn't have time to deal with a novice like him. Ryota is relieved at first, but he remembers something. A look back shows when Ryota first met Yuzawa. His entire family was eliminated by ninja, and he lived on the fringes of society as a low-level Gokudo. There was nowhere for him to go, so Ryota wondered if he should just take his own life. Yuzawa called him a moron for just thinking that, and told him to ignore what society thinks of him. Yuzawa declared that the Gokudo always face forward, and he demanded that Ryota never hang his head ever again. This memory of his mentor brings Ryota to tears, and his newfound determination causes him to consume the Hell's Coupon. Ryota pushes himself to stop Shin, and declares that if he runs from a ninja, then he will never be able to face his mentor ever again. Ryota vows that he will face forward no matter what, just like he was taught, and standing up to a ninja is what facing forward means to him. He won't let Shin pass even if it costs him his life, and he promises to protect his mentor. Ryota is shocked when Shin calls him a good guy, and reveals that he has made his decision. It's clear to Shin that this guy has a lot of resolve, so there's no other option than to end his life. Ryota's fear returns as Shin explains that he wants to join up with one of his friends as well. Shin formally gives his name as he declares that he will give Ryota his ultimate respect before eliminating him. Ryota finally realizes what these fights are all about, so all his fear leaves him. He introduces himself to the ninja as well, and declares that having his life taken with respect would be an honor. Ryota doesn't plan on that happening though, and he tells Shin that they will go all out with no holding back. The fight begins, and Ryota even shocks himself when he manages to land a punch on Shin's face. Shin compliments the attack as he was able to feel Ryota's soul in it, and he attacks back. Ryota blocks it though, and explains that his entire fighting style is iron hard punches and iron hard defenses. That's his Gokudo skill, and it's called Iron Arms of Manly Fortitude. Another one of these iron punches forces Shin back, and Shin finds that his own attacks are being stopped easily by Ryota. As they fight, Ryota can only think about how proud Yuzawa would be of him. He's fighting evenly with the powerful ninja, but eventually one of Shin's attacks causes some damage. Shin reveals that it's the Blade of Darkness called Aura Ultimate Penetration. His thought process was simple: whenever something is as strong as iron, he just smashes through it. Shin then uses the same attack, but this time it's a barrage of them. Ryota has no choice but to try and defend himself, but Shin's non-stop strikes are hitting dead center every single time. Ryota struggles immensely as his iron arms won't be able to last much longer, and Shin isn't showing any signs of slowing down. In fact, it's the opposite, as Shin seems to be getting stronger as the battle goes on. Eventually, Shin prepares to land a fatal finishing blow, and Ryota can only think about Yuzawa before Shin's attack brutally tears him apart. The fight is over, so Shin acknowledges Ryota as a tough opponent that he came to respect. Meanwhile, inside the room, Yuzawa's body collapses as Nodoka takes his life. Nodoka can't help but cry as he tells Grandpa Kai that he's been avenged, and he still promises to eliminate the Gokudo who actually took his life. As he leaves, however, Nodoka's shocked to hear Yuzawa's voice again. Yuzawa reveals that the pool of blood from severing so many heads earlier helped douse out the flames from Nodoka's last attack. Nodoka is stunned to see that Yuzawa is somehow still alive despite having a giant hole in his body. Yuzawa angrily tells the ninja not to underestimate the Gokudo because he refuses to go down until he restores their honor. Nodoka becomes even more concerned when he realizes that all the Gokudo he just torched are also still alive. It's a nightmarish scene as Nodoka points out that normal humans couldn't withstand this kind of attack. It should be impossible, but he remembers seeing them consume something just before the fight. There is no other explanation, as he concludes that it must be the secret behind how the Gokudo were able to end the life of a ninja. Meanwhile, Yazawa has realized something as well, as he pulls out a tiny scrap of skin out of his body. It turns out that Nodoka's attack shoots out tiny scraps of superheated skin, and that is how he was able to set Yazawa and his men on fire. Yazawa determines that the Flame Ninja's body is probably uniquely adapted to handle extreme heat, and he floats in the air using updrafts from that same heat. That solves the mystery of how his attacks work, but Yazawa still wonders how he's supposed to beat him. A single dagger is all that he has left to attack with. It was actually a gift from Kiwami, and Yazawa was impressed that the blade was able to survive such intense heat. The odds are stacked against him, but Yazawa is confident that this dagger will be all that he needs to defeat Nodoka. Nodoka, meanwhile, realizes that he now knows the secret of the Gokudo, and he must eliminate Yazawa so he can tell the others right away. Nodoka takes to the sky once again, and Yazawa reminds himself to keep moving forward like always. His motto is to never stop moving forward, but he's horrified when his body begins to fail him. Yazawa realizes that he doesn't have much left, but he wasn't planning on leaving anything for after this fight anyway. He asks for Kiwami to give him strength one last time, and Nodoka is stunned when Yazawa stabs himself. He can't understand what this crazy guy is doing, but Yazawa declares that hurting himself just fired him up. Nodoka can't believe what he's watching, and he can only acknowledge that Yazawa is some kind of raging inferno of determination. Yazawa's resolve spreads to the other Gokudo as they push themselves as well, and they work together to reach Nodoka. They call this attack the Tower of Family, and Nodoka is shocked as they aren't letting him escape. Even as their bodies burn and their screams fill the air, the Gokudo push through the pain. They move forward just like Yazawa always told them to, and they shout for Yazawa to finish the fight. Yazawa springs forward with his blade while thanking his loyal fighters, and he uses his March of the Yakuza liner attack. He climbs his mountain of soldiers, and Yazawa manages to plunge his blade into Nodoka's heart. However, Nodoka removes his head in return. Nodoka is shocked to learn just how far the Gokudo are willing to go, and Yazawa uses his last moments to think about how he had a good life. He pictures all the people closest to him and has a vision of meeting the legendary Gokudo leader named Takamoto. Yazawa always followed in his footsteps and did his best to honor the Gokudo. It was agonizing to endure so much, but Yazawa was proud of how he was able to keep moving forward. Tears flow from his eyes as this is his final thought before passing away. Meanwhile, Nodoka is in great pain, but he tells himself that he cannot lose his life here. He must tell the others about the Gokudo secret, but his body has nothing left. He desperately wants to live, but it wasn't always that way for him. Nodoka hated his life before, and he wanted it to end. He had to endure several hardships growing up, like everyone in his family physically hurting him. Even when he was an orphan, the director of the orphanage tried to end his life and sell his organs. Every time any of these problems reached their peak, Nodoka's mind would spiral out of control, and his entire body would burn, setting everything on fire. Nodoka was tired of this body of his, and tired of his life. He was prepared to end it all, but Shin appeared out of nowhere to stop him. Shin was sure that Nodoka would be embarrassed to lose his life this way, and Nodoka explained how terrible everything was. He warned that he couldn't control the flames, and Shin would be burned alive if he stayed near him. Shin wasn't scared in the slightest, however, as he declared that fire was nothing. His grandpa Kai's special training was way worse than any flames. Shin was investigating something about the Gokudo selling organs taken from orphans, but the place was already set on fire. Shin decided to just take Nodoka with him, and he explained that he was a ninja. He told Nodoka to train his body because if he could learn to control it, then he would be able to help people with it. Shin pointed out that they can't control what family or body they're born into, but they have a choice in what their life will be like when it comes to an end. He assured Nodoka that if he lived his life helping others, then he would die with a smile on his face. As for the ninja, they live for the day that they get to pass on with a smile on their face. Nodoka was incredibly inspired by his words, and he was shocked to learn that Shin was only 10 years old at the time. Nodoka is determined to tell Shin about what the Gokudo are doing, because he won't be able to have a smile on his face if he loses his life now. Not losing their lives in vain is what a ninja takes pride in, so Nodoka is more determined than ever to complete his mission. He takes the Hell's Coupon from Yazawa's mouth and finds relief in knowing that he's one step closer to his goal. Unfortunately, fate is cruel, as his life is ended with a single gunshot. A man named Yajima is the one who did it, and he's accompanied by Kiwami and a girl named Gamut. Kiwami can't help but admire how each ninja has their own special abilities. Kai had arms that could stretch with no end, and Nodoka had the ability to ignite fires, burning everything around him. A terrifying power indeed, but Yazawa bravely confronted him regardless. Kiwami had known Yazawa for a long time, and it was just like him to give up his life to take down a ninja. With this great victory, Kiwami declares that the weak were finally able to bite back at the strong. Gamut is apparently a crazy person, as she says that it was for nothing because Yazawa still lost his life in the end, but Kiwami scolds her and reminds her to be nice to her friends. Gamut promises not to make him mad, but Kiwami doesn't even really know what emotions are. He has some kind of dark past, as he blames his family life and an accident for being the reason that he can't feel anything. Kiwami understands emotions in theory, and he can act them out, but he doesn't know how they feel. Because of this, he will never truly be able to relate to anyone in this world. However, it's because of this that he understands what being lonely means more than anyone else. He apologizes to Yazawa because he's incapable of shedding tears for him. Instead, he puts Yazawa's blood on his face as a symbol for tears of blood. Just then Shin arrives, but he can only see 3 figures standing amongst the flames. Kiwami sees him as well, but he can't tell who he is. It could be one of the workers in the building, or even a ninja. There's no time to waste, however, as they have a lot of cleaning to do and must leave. As punishment for disrespecting Yazawa, he instructs Gamut to stay behind and get rid of whoever the person is. He says that he will be waiting in the car and only gives her 3 minutes before they leave her. Shin yells for them not to run away, but he is shocked when he sees Nodoka's lifeless body. Thankfully, Nodoka seems to still be alive, but his injuries mean that he won't last long. Nodoka tries to speak, but he can hardly get any words out. Shin tells him not to push himself too hard and explains that he will just read his lips. The only words that come out though are to warn Shin of an attack. Suddenly, Gamut comes crashing down from the ceiling, but Shin is furious and she must get back. Shin's rage permeates from his every word as he just says that he will end the girl's life over and over again. Gamut can't even understand where all this rage is coming from, but Shin doesn't care as he just continues to rain down attacks. Shin keeps saying how he will take her life, and Gamut is terrified to see him go berserk like this. She's insane though, as she cries out to her mommy, and she nearly slices Shin's head off. Gamut says that she almost made Shin's brain spill out like noodles, but she's pleased to see that she messed up his eye pretty good. Gamut explains that she's one of the Eikokura of destruction, and she's way stronger than Yazawa was. Shin, however, couldn't care less about that, or how he only has one good eye now. Gamut calls him a big talker, but realizes that he's more than that when she notices that he chopped off her hand. Gamut wonders if she could stick her hand back on, but Shin just strikes it a bunch of times and gets rid of it. Nodoka watches in amazement as Shin has somehow always managed to exceed whatever expectations he had of him. Shin introduces himself once again, but filled with anger this time, and Gamut shows that she has gotten serious as well. She promises to make Shin so sick that he will wish that he wasn't alive, and make him beg for someone to end it. Her Gokudo skill is called Pestilence, and the two vow to end the other's life as they charge at each other. Suddenly, they both stop as Gamut's phone rings. She answers it, and Shin is shocked when he realizes that her ringtone is a Flash Princess theme song. Kiwami's on the other end, and he tells Gamut that her time is up, so she's on her own now. She begs him to give her more time, but he's already gone. Shin is ready to continue their intense battle, but Gamut is bored now and just leaves. She knows his name and face now, so she promises to one day destroy his greatest happiness and end him. She vows to drag him to the depths of despair and make him sick. Gamut is crazy though, so she also says a cheerful goodbye before leaving. She gets his name completely wrong though, as she calls him Takanodo Kinoko, and she doesn't even listen when Shin tries to correct her. Shin rushes back to Nodoka, but he only has bad news. He wishes that he could say that everything is fine, but the reality is that he's not going to survive. This comes as no surprise to Nodoka, however, as he already has his final words prepared. He reveals that the Gokudo are deliberately misbehaving to lure out the ninja in order to eliminate them. Most importantly though, the secret to them being able to do it is a small piece of paper. Shin is grateful for Nodoka sacrificing himself to get this information, and he would like to hear anything else that Nodoka wants to say. Nodoka uses his last moments to tell Shin that he owes him so much. Shin has always been there to guide him, just like an older brother. Nodoka has fond memories of how Shin used to train him in secret sometimes because Grandpa Kai didn't want him learning certain dangerous techniques. Also, during Nodoka's first mission, Shin was the one that had his back the entire time. Nodoka then thanked Shin for inviting him to become a ninja. Nodoka wanted to end his life for the longest time, but Shin gave him a way to live so his life could end with a smile on his face. That was all thanks to Shin, and Nodoka is sure that he will someday be able to smile as well. Shin is such a nice person, and Nodoka is confident that his smile will be amazing that day. Nodoka finds peace after being able to tell all that to Shin, and he smiles just before his life ends. The building begins to collapse around them, but Shin can hardly move as his anger consumes him. Meanwhile, Kiwami thinks about Yazawa and reveals that he has prepared a small tribute for him. Gamut knows exactly what he's planning, so she runs for her life. Kiwami says his final farewell to Yazawa and blows up the entire building. The explosion is massive, so it causes damage to the entire area, but we see that Shin managed to escape with Nodoka's lifeless body. A news report reveals that the explosion did major damage, and it completely destroyed a large part of the city. We then see that the other ninja are horrified, as Shin reveals that Nodoka has lost his life. Zanzo is furious as he blames himself for letting Nodoka go alone, so he orders Shin to punch him in the face. Shin does, and Zanzo's rage really begins to come out. His rage is aimed at the Gokudo now, because he is sure that they will keep targeting ninja. Zanzo transforms into his boss form, and he declares that he possesses the strongest ninja power. He can shapeshift, and he's omnipotent, so it's his responsibility to make sure that whatever happened to Nodoka doesn't happen to anyone else. When Shin is alone, his mind is overwhelmed with thoughts about when the Gokudo will attack next. He's interrupted though, as Kiwami just happens to appear, and he tells Shin to join him for a ride. They drive for a while without Kiwami saying a single word, so Shin wonders what's going on. Kiwami answers by bringing up their favorite Flash Princess anime, and he references the first enemy that the protagonist defeated. His name was Otto Kong, and he was a demon gorilla leader. He challenged one of the heroes to avenge his friend, and when he lost, he took the hero down with him. At the end of the episode, Heath mourned the death of her demon friend. Kiwami explains that he feels like that now, which makes Shin realize that someone he knew must have passed away. Kiwami explains that this person was a good man and the personification of kindness. He always believed in Kiwami, and Kiwami says that he was more of a friend than he ever deserved. Driving is supposed to clear your mind, but it isn't working for Kiwami. He apologizes for wasting Shin's time, but he's shocked when Shin is the one to give him advice. Shin says that he doesn't really understand, but he tells Kiwami to do his best to stay in the race. He says that the people that are important to him deserve to have a place in his memory. Shin thinks of those that he lost, and he says to not let the wishes of your friends go to waste. They should try to carry them out, and Shin vows to never hesitate to do so. Kiwami really appreciates the motivational words, and he wonders if his friendship with Shin is what it feels like to have a little brother. Kiwami allows Shin to call him Big Bro, but Shin would rather jump out of the moving car. After they part ways, Kiwami meets up with a guy named Hiroki. They drive on Tato Highway, which is infamous for being a place where criminals congregate. Some jerks begin to tailgate them, so Kiwami wonders what the old Hiroki would have done. Hiroki has changed a lot since then, but he used to be Taito Highway's living legend, with 100,000 men at his command. Biker gangs all over Japan worshipped him as a charismatic figure among delinquents. Hiroki is the former leader of the Saikatan biker gang army, but now he's in the Eikakudo of destruction. Hiroki shows no mercy as he demonstrates his ability to make bullets dance, and he blows up the vehicle that was tailgating them. Kiwami thought that cars only blew up in the movies, but Hiroki explains that it can be real if you shoot 2 bullets into the gas tank. If the shooter is precise enough, they can make the bullets collide with each other, and the resulting spark will ignite the gas. Hiroki's ability is called the Bullet Disco, and he's one of the strongest Gokudo. He gets to business though, and he asks Kiwami for some help. At the site of the explosion, Maru determines that it clearly wasn't an accident, and destruction like this can only be called a calamity. After Maru leaves, we see that it was actually Zanzo the entire time. He declares that he can transform into anything and achieve anything. The fate of the Gokudo is in his hands, and he says that the next calamity will be the ninja's doing. Elsewhere, several doctors are shocked by one very exceptional surgeon. He has already done 10 cancer surgeries today, and he's not showing any signs of stopping. All of the 10 surgeries that he did were difficult procedures that would send other noted doctors running, but this guy did them with ease. His cuts are precise and even godlike, and he does them without even using any tools. No one can figure out how he's able to work without a scalpel, and it's as if he's doing surgery without even touching the patient. All the doctors celebrate when he finishes because he removed cancer from 88 places in this one patient's body in under 30 minutes. This guy is the head of a family known for medical arts, and his name is Seiko. This guy hasn't said a single word, but when he does, he says that the Gokudo must be eliminated. Elsewhere, a restaurant brings out their most famous and expensive liquor for one of their own employees. It's the legendary cognac, worth more than 400 million yen, and a guy that has worked there for years has never even seen it before. He can't understand why it's being brought out for this new guy, and he wonders if it's because of his giant muscles. One of the girls that is fawning over the man explains that it has nothing to do with muscles, and instead it has to do with having a backbone. To help him understand, she tells a story about how her crazy Gokudo ex-boyfriend once tried to run her over. She had already accepted her fate, but the new guy stood in front of the 10-ton truck and shielded her with his body. She says that girls love sturdy men like him, and we learn that his name is Yagi. Yagi then reminds the owner that they had a deal. He just made the restaurant 1 billion yen in a week, so now he gets to take time off. He has to leave immediately because he says that his precious friends are waiting for him. Back at the base, Yagi arrives to say hi to Shin. Shin hasn't changed at all since they last saw each other, and it's clear that he still can't smile. Yagi comes up with the great idea to have Shin come to his club because the hosts there are pros at making people laugh. Shin isn't interested, but Yagi seems to have ADHD as he's already wondering why Shin has a red eye. Seiko is the next to arrive, and he apologizes for his little brother's behavior. He immediately checks Shin's eye as a doctor, and he fixes it right up. Shin is amazed as he's able to see again, and Sako explains that his family's surgical art has been passed down for 400 years. Sako then tells Shin to come to his hospital because a small cut in his brain will be all it takes to make him laugh again. Shin passes on the offer, and Zanzo greets the Cursed Blood Ninja Brothers. Zanzo reveals that the Ikokuro of Destruction have taken the lives of Kai and Adoka, but Yagi has no clue who this guy is. A closer look at his eyes reveals that it's their chief Zanzo, and Zanzo affirms that the Gokuro are making themselves stronger with drugs. Shiki has analyzed the drugs and determined that it's a mix of various steroids and Chinese medicines. Zanzo tested it by giving a tiny piece to a rat, and with its powers, the rat was able to take down a bear. It's clear that the Gokuro are at their most confident right now, so Zanzo is sure that they're plotting something. Just like they have been, Zanzo says that the Gokuro will lure out the ninja by doing another evil deed. Elsewhere, Hiroki laments how there are so many people that hate their adult lives. Kiwami would like to know what his plan is, so Hiroki explains that he will first contact his friends that are scattered across the world. The first person is a guy that lives in filth. His wife rambles non-stop about some nonsense, and he considers putting an end to it all. His name is Alpha, and the phone call from Hiroki brings him to tears. He's been waiting for a long time, and he's ready to carry out any orders Hiroki has. Elsewhere, some guy gets treated like garbage by his boss. The guy's really spineless as he never sticks up for himself, and he receives a call from Alpha. Alpha explains what's going on, and this guy called Sigma is delighted to hear that they're being called upon by the god of biker gangs. Sigma's boss tries to belittle him again, but this time he punches him in the face a bunch of times while quitting. At a baseball game, the fans cheer like crazy for a player named Omega. He can set a new record for home runs with his next at-bat, and he's known as the Human Whirlwind. He moved to the United States all by himself when he was 18, and he became a baseball phenom. He has hit 799 home runs in just 10 years, and the announcer is sure that all he sees now is glory on the field. Omega looks around at all his admiring fans, but the truth is that he isn't moved at all by any of this. Just then, Omega is told that he has a call from Sigma. Omega was squad commander back in the day, so he speaks formally to Lieutenant Sigma. Omega's informed about what's going on, so he immediately leaves everything behind for his true calling. The other members are contacted all over the world, and they declare that the Golden Age is finally returning. It's only been a few minutes, but Hiroki declares that 50,000 of his boys will gather by the next day. That's pretty incredible, so Kiwami can only wonder what they're planning to do. Hiroki explains that going crazy without any limits is a biker gang's biggest dream because it gets rid of the pain and dullness of life. Years ago, their dream world was stolen from them by the ninja. 100,000 of his men stood bravely against the ninja, but 50,000 of them lost their lives. Hiroki plans to revive their dream, and he vows to bring salvation to all the suffering adults. Also, to get revenge on the ninja, he and his men will fight on their sacred Tato Highway. Elsewhere, Shin thinks about how Zanzo told the ninja to keep an eye out for mischief. Just then, he notices Kiwami nearby, talking to his work boss. Elsewhere, Hiroki takes a picture with some of his fans. They admire him a lot, but Hiroki has a true love, and he looks to the sky while telling her that he will never forget her. Hiroki's men appear soon after, and they hold back tears while saying hello to their boss. Hiroki's impressed by how Omega was able to become a famous baseball star, but Omega's just happy to be back. Hiroki acknowledges that being an adult is hard, so they all agree that tonight they will all be young again. Elsewhere, Shin and Kiwami bump into Shiki, and she pretends to be Shin's neighbor. She's surprised to hear that Shin has a friend, but Kiwami gets an important call, and he apologizes as he must leave immediately. Shin explains to Shiki that Kiwami's the first friend he's ever had, and he is sure that there is something special about him. This is because a while ago they were talking, and Shin thinks that Kiwami was able to make him laugh. This is stunning news to Shiki, and she sheds a tear. Everyone that knows Shin has tried to make him laugh, but every single one of them failed. Kiwami's the first person to do it, so she agrees that he's a really good friend. Shiki's in a really good mood after hearing all this, so she tells Shin that they should hold hands for a while. He does, and this makes Shiki think about their past. Shiki doesn't want to reveal the truth, so she has decided to take her feelings to the grave. She plans to love Shin in secret for the rest of her life, but she takes joy in being able to bask in the happiness that she has now. That night, we see that Hiroki's biker gang has assembled. Hiroki credits it all to Kiwami because he was the only reason they were able to get 30,000 cars. It required a lot of money, but Kiwami says that it was worth it to see the legendary biker gang ride again for the first time in 20 years. The two guys have a smoke, and they wish each other Godspeed. At the ninja base, a crow alerts everyone that the Taito Highway is completely filled with danger. Even worse though, we see that Shiki has discovered a terrible secret. She trembles uncontrollably, as the truth is just too terrifying, and it has to do with the never-before-seen image. It's the image taken from Kai's monocle, and it reveals the person who ended Kai's life. The image is of Kiwami, and Shiki recognizes his face immediately. A while later, we see that Hiroki's powered up by the Gokudo drugs, and he declares that tonight this gang will return to their youth. His men speed through the streets, and the cops alert each other about the huge disturbance. Hiroki gives a speech to his men over the phone, and he tells them to forget about their adult burdens. The police are feeling the might of his gang, and they desperately call for backup. It's no use, however, as there are just too many Gokudo, and they aren't stopping for anything. Hiroki promises to make the dreams of his gang come true, and vows to bring them back to the Golden Age. The police are frantic as they announce that Gokudo cars, coming from several directions, are barreling toward Taito Highway. They try to block the path of the Gokudo, but Hiroki tells his men to obliterate everything, and they smash right through the barricade. The police are horrified as the Gokudo have made their way onto the highway, and they even go in the wrong direction. No one is safe from their rampage, as the Gokudo smash through everything in their way. Hiroki couldn't be more pleased, as he declares that anyone in their path will lose their life. The ninja watches the Taito highways engulfed in flames, and the Gokudo car gang continue their rampage. Zanzo points out that this is much different from before because the Gokudo are using cars instead of bikes and lowriders. Zanzo would like to hear if anyone knows what this means, so Shin explains that the Gokudo are obviously looking for a fight. They're antagonizing the ninja to lure them out, but the terrifying Zanzo declares that it's fine with him. 30,000 Gokudo cars are trying to pick a fight with them, so Zanzo announces that the 5 of them will just have to annihilate the Gokudo. The ninja are all in agreement, so Zanzo tells each one of them what part of the highway that they're responsible for. Zanzo has everyone put on their gear, and he tells them all that it's time to feast on evil. Nearby, a guy tries to wake up his mom after she was hurt on the highway. The Gokudo are barreling toward them with the worst intentions, but the ninjas show up just in time to help them. Shin loudly says that it's time for the Gokudo to die, and he uses his incredible hand speed to stop the cars in their tracks. His barrage of attacks tears all the Gokudo to pieces, and he removes their heads as they come flying out of their windshields. Zanzo explains that the Gokudo are circling Taito Highway along 4 routes. Their job as ninja is simply to wait along those routes. If they stop the Gokudo for even just a few minutes, then the wrecks will pile up and they will have themselves a barricade. That's exactly what Shin does now, and we see that he has created a huge explosive pileup that the Gokudo are still crashing into. Shin calls this his ninja checkpoint, and he tells the Gokudo that he will never let them get past it. Elsewhere, the Prime Minister named Ida can't believe what's happening. He's told that he needs to get to safety, but he sees a strange figure in the distance. This person is Zanzo, but he doesn't care about being seen. It could be trouble if his ninja identity was found out, but he reminds himself that he can always just change his face. More importantly, the Gokudo have arrived, so he uses his compliant destruction and spectacular bloom of blistering heat attack. Zanzo says that this is for his fallen comrades, and his attack covers the highway in flames. Nearby, Shiki brings some of the injured people to safety, and she can't believe how cruel the Gokudo are. They think of only themselves, and they don't even care if they cause harm to young people. Shiki becomes enraged, so she takes to the sky and uses her blade of darkness. It's called the perfume of eternal sleep, and it goes everywhere. She explains that it's a fragrance that is produced from the sweat glands of her palms. Inhaling it directly envelops her enemies in the most blissful of dreams, and they will never awaken again, even if their car crashes, and even if their bodies burn to ashes. Shiki uses this ability to crash several Gokudo cars, and she walks by as many of the Gokudo burn while smiling from their sweet dreams. Elsewhere, the ninja twin brothers are confronted by Sigma and Alpha. These two Gokudo have been friends for the longest time, and they think about how things have always been this way. They were in middle school with Omega when Hiroki recruited them so they could start a biker gang. After that, Hiroki was always there to save them, and he gave them a dream. The boys idolized him, and he promised to make all their dreams come true. Sigma explains that a perfected technique becomes a Gokudo skill, and he demonstrates his on a nearby cop car. His Gokudo skill is called Police Trash, and his attack slices the vehicle to pieces. The Gokudo are amazed by this, and they call Sigma's attack a work of art. Sigma then reveals that he honed this skill by cutting through 100 police cars. He declares that he will have a one-on-one fight with Seiko, and he tells him to prepare for his Bozuko-style swordsmanship attack. Seiko introduces himself in return, and he tells the Gokudo to come at him. Sigma takes a look at the pileup the ninja created, and he notices something. Seiko doesn't carry a sword, but the cars all look like they were sliced to pieces by a razor-sharp blade. Sigma concludes that it was done by a sword-like hand, and his swordsmanship instincts are telling him that Seiko is a top-class swordsman like him. If he lets Seiko get close, then his life won't last much longer, but Sigma isn't afraid. He doesn't care about any of that, and he charges in. Sigma decides that he will just have to cut Seiko down with his blade before Seiko's hand even gets close to him. Unfortunately, this doesn't go as planned because Seiko uses his blade of darkness, called the Glacial Blade. Sigma is horrified as he was frozen and his body was sliced in half. Seiko explains that this secret technique has been passed down several generations, and it lets its wielder turn their hair into blades. That explains the slicing, but there's another terrifying part of this ability. Multiple strands of hair whip through the air with godlike speed, creating complex air currents that cause a rapid drop in temperature. Because of this, his strands of hair become sub-zero blades that cut through and freeze everything. Seiko has decisively won his fight in a matter of seconds, and he wonders how his brother's doing. Yagi's facing off against Alpha, and the two of them formally introduce themselves. Their battle begins instantly, and Alpha surprises Yagi when he dodges his first attack. Alpha counters with his Gokudo skill called the Buddha Fist Smash, and he's pleased to land the first strike. His joy doesn't last long, however, as he feels some kind of pain, and he's shocked to see that he crushed his hand on Yagi's face. Yagi compliments him for the impressive punch, and he explains what just happened. He starts by going into great detail about a physiological phenomenon that all humans have. It's called piezoelectricity, and it describes how bones can generate electricity when force is applied to them. Yagi's bones are tens of thousands times denser than an ordinary person's, so when he applies his Blade of Darkness to those bones, it gives them incredible powers. Yagi's Blade of Darkness is called the Immortal Electric Man, and he uses it to eliminate all the Gokudo. Alpha declares that he isn't done yet, and we see that Sigma isn't done either somehow. They both hated their adult lives, and they were miserable. They feel pathetic now compared to how they were when they were young, and they're like zombies now. Hiroki was the one that saved them again, so for his sake, they will not stop fighting. They vow to eliminate the ninja so they can ride again, and they refuse to let their dream die. They charge at our heroes, but their lives are quickly ended. Their last thoughts are about how they were able to live their dream one last time, and they pass away. They leave this world with a smile on their face, as they happily thank Hiroki for what he did. Elsewhere, a crowd is gathered, as they are amazed by the person fighting the mysterious man in black. The person they're amazed by is Omega, because they recognize him as the great American baseball star. Omega's Gokudo skill is called Golden Whirlwind, which is him using his baseball bat to generate a huge wind attack. Omega uses the bat for direct attacks as well, and he's impressed by Zanzo's speed. Zanzo is absolutely terrifying though, because he removed a piece of Hell's coupon from Omega's mouth. He tore a hole right in Omega's face to get the coupon, and Omega didn't even realize it until right now. Zanzo's not impressed by the coupon, as he points out that it can't compare to the power a ninja has. Ninja train themselves beyond human limits, so a little coupon will never replace hard work. Omega's enjoying himself quite a bit, as he explains that it's been a while since he had a pitch worth swinging at. Zanzo reveals that he's actually a baseball fan, and he has even watched all of Omega's games. Omega's home run record is up there with the greats of American baseball, so Zanzo concludes that Omega has some fierce dedication and an amazing love for baseball. Of course, this makes Zanzo wonder why he abandoned all that glory just to commit violent crimes. Omega explains that his gang's golden age was just too bright for him to ignore. As he speaks, Zanzo takes a baseball uniform from the corpse of an Omega fan and puts it on. Omega then says that nothing can compare to the feeling he gets when speeding on the highway and smashing anything that gets in his way. It's exhilarating, and Omega just can't get enough. Zanzo doesn't believe him, and he wonders if Omega will still say that after he shows him something. Zanzo then transforms into someone that shakes Omega to his core. As this kid, Zanzo says hello to Omega and asks him to hit a home run for him. A look into the past shows Omega crying in a hospital after that kid passed. His friend tried to console him, and he explained that baseball cannot cure illnesses. His friend told Omega that he needed to grow up, but Omega declared that baseball is what keeps him alive. He was a complete delinquent growing up, and he said that baseball gave him a new way to live. He wanted to believe that baseball could solve everything, but reality eventually caught up to him. Zanzo points out that Omega is using this supposed dream this gang has as an escape. He says that Omega ran from baseball when it betrayed him, and he ran from the suffering he endured from that traumatic experience. Zanzo reiterates that he's a fan of the sport, so he implores Omega to say that he still loves baseball. Unfortunately, Omega can only apologize, as he once again says that the Gokudo's golden age is just too bright for him to ignore. It's clear that Omega is bound to his memories, so Zanzo has no choice but to use the power of the King of Baseball. As he transforms, Zanzo declares that he will restore Omega's love for baseball and then end his life. Everyone watching is then stunned when Zanzo transforms into the greatest batter baseball has ever known. No one is more shocked than Omega, as seeing this guy triggers a memory. Omega was lost in life, and he wondered if anything would ever excite him as much as being in Hiroki's gang. He was bored with life as an adult, but one day he saw that a baseball player had broken the home run record. Omega was inspired, and this moment changed his life forever. The record breaker was the King of Baseball, and Omega can't believe that he's standing in front of him right now. Zanzo challenges him to a batting contest from one home run king to another, and Omega's mood completely changes. He formally introduces himself and says that he will use his bat to make his dream shine. Zanzo introduces himself back, and everyone watches in amazement. This is the dream match that the world has been waiting for, but the stakes have never been so high. They will have a batting contest with no ball, and they will be batting for their lives. The match begins and the two guys cause a huge explosion when their bats collide. The force they generate is immense, and even the Prime Minister goes flying into the air. Omega is in awe after seeing how the batting king swings his bat because the strike rattled his bones. Zanzo tells Omega that he needs to work on bat control, so he demonstrates how it's done. Their bats collide several more times, and Omega's in complete disbelief as he faces off against his idol. The moment is incredibly dramatic, so he wonders if something like this can even happen in his boring life. Omega credits Hiroki for leading him to this moment, and Zanzo knocks the bat out of Omega's hands. Zanzo wonders how Omega feels about baseball after facing off against his idol, and Omega smiles. He says that he loves it, but this comes just before Zanzo knocks his head off. It's an incredible home run for Zanzo, and Omega's last thought as his head flies through space is that his life was incredible. The fight is over, but the Prime Minister has something to say. He has heard about the ninja who fight the world's evil without the help of the government or the police. He wants to work with them, but Zanzo explains that the ninja obey no one, and they follow their own sense of justice. He says that the government has no place in this battle, and he leaves. Back with Shin, he tells some of the injured to get to safety. Shin sees a picture of people holding hands, and this makes him think of Shiki. Shiki is thinking about him as well, and she vows to destroy every Gokudo that comes her way. However, she wants to eliminate Kiwami more than anyone. Shiki can only hope to accomplish this task before Shin learns the truth about his only friend. Elsewhere, Hiroki enjoys himself because this rampage is a dream come true. He never wants to wake up from this dream, but he's surprised when he sees the shadow of the Grim Reaper. This shadow is cast by Shin, who immediately attacks Hiroki. Hiroki prepares to defend himself, but Shin takes out his driver instead. Hiroki fires his gun anyway, and his bullets go right through the eyes of his driver's head. Shin can tell that Hiroki is the leader of this rampage, so he demands to know how old Hiroki is. Hiroki reveals that he's 39, so this confuses Shin even more. He points out that Hiroki is an adult, so he wonders why he's doing something only a delinquent would do. Hiroki simply says that a kid could never understand how an adult feels, and he begins to antagonize Shin. He wonders if all ninja are able to create fire, and Shin becomes furious as he knows what this guy's trying to say. Hiroki then says that he only mentioned fire because he shot a ninja in the head that was able to control fire. This comment really sets Shin off, so he immediately introduces himself. He thanks this filthy Gokudo because Hiroki just gave him another reason to end his life. Just then, Hiroki fires off 2 shots, but they miss, and Shin wonders if he missed on purpose. Hiroki now introduces himself, and he declares that he will teach Shin how hard it is to be an adult. Hiroki shoots again while using his Gokudo skill, and it shocks Shin to his core. It's called Pistol Disco, and it allows him to make bullets ricochet off debris and seemingly dance in the air. The bullets ricochet everywhere, and Shin must move at rapid speed to avoid being hit. Hiroki only makes things more difficult as he fires more shots, and Shin doesn't know how much longer he can dodge them. Eventually, Hiroki runs out of bullets, but he reveals that he has plenty of guns with more bullets in them. He then explains why he likes Tato Highway so much. The highway has a porous structure to reduce noise, and this makes it easy for debris to accumulate. Back in the day, Hiroki used to pull this move on all his enemies all the time, so he tells Shin that it's time to take things up a notch. Hiroki fires off more bullets than he ever has before, and he tells Shin to dance for him. Every bullet he fires creates more debris, and each piece of debris ends up being something else that his bullets can bounce off of. Eventually, there are just too many bullets for Shin to dodge, and he ends up getting shot in the leg. Hiroki announces that the fight is over, and says that this is what being an adult is. Facing insurmountable difficulties that wear you down and break your heart over and over again. That terrible feeling is what it means to be an adult. Just then, Shin remembers a conversation he had with Shiki about what she would do if faced with insurmountable difficulties. Shiki's answer was simple, as she said that she would just give up. Hiroki now stands in front of him and says that he can tell that Shin thinks that he plays a leading role in life. Hiroki sends a bullet through Shin's head as he declares that he doesn't play the leading role and he's just a side character. Hiroki can't believe how easy it was to defeat Shin, and he wonders if that's really everything a ninja has. This psycho becomes excited, however, when Shin springs up to attack him, and he declares that this is what a ninja is really supposed to be. Hiroki's amazed to see that Shin was able to survive a bullet through the brain, and he calls Shin a total monster. Shin doesn't take the credit, however, and reveals what really happened. The moment the bullet touched his skin, Shin turned his head to match the bullet's rotation. This allowed him to deflect the bullet with the outside of his skull, and it only looked like the bullet went straight through his head. It was a gamble between life and death, and Hiroki's amazed by what ninja are capable of. Shin thinks about what Shiki told him about facing insurmountable difficulties again. She pointed out that life is a series of difficulties. Adults fight against them constantly and get worn down. Broken-hearted adults are pretty common, which is why she just gave up. She chose to stop fighting against hardship, and instead she just let it wash over her. Instead of hoping for the best, she was happy with the second best. Living in the present became a priority, and so did taking small steps towards the future. Her motto was that life is about resignation and trying to avoid a broken heart. This was her secret to staying strong and living life to the fullest. Shin can tell that there was something that Hiroki didn't want to give up on, and in the end it broke his heart. He assumes that the pain must have been so bad that he turned to rampaging, so Shin doesn't want that for himself. Shin declares that he's still a kid, and he doesn't want to become an adult like Hiroki. Hiroki's done listening to his speech, so he fires a couple of shots. He points out that Shin's legs are useless now, so his life will soon come to an end. Hiroki prepares to use his Gokudo skill again, but Shin interrupts him. He declares that Hiroki can't take people's lives whenever he wants, and he starts creating debris of his own. His rapid strikes send debris everywhere, but Hiroki says that he will never be able to cause damage this way. He is shocked, however, when Shin reveals that he isn't using the debris as a projectile attack. He actually did this so he could fly around their battlefield without having to use his legs. Hiroki's impressed that Shin ricochets himself off the rubble, and he screams out to the ninja in disbelief. Shin is moving at superhuman speeds, and none of his bullets are able to strike him. Just then, Shin admits that he couldn't have learned this little trick with skill alone. He reveals that he watched Hiroki's attack earlier, and he simply copied it. Shin has a serious advantage now with this speed, and he uses it to close the gap. He combines this with his Blade of Darkness called the Falling Strike, and he cuts Hiroki's arm off. Shin is disappointed because he was aiming for Hiroki's neck, so he realizes that he still has to adjust to this new attack. Hiroki is incredibly annoyed by the ninja, but Shin just creates even more debris. He moves even faster this time, and Hiroki's frustration reaches its peak. He thinks about everything he has done to get here, and questions what it was all for. He had Kawami give him 30,000 cars, and he gathered 50,000 of his men. They covered Tato Highway in flames, and Hiroki himself sent his closest friends to fight the ninja. Hiroki has done so many terrible things, and now he wonders what it was all for. These questions lead to a vision of his bracelet, and Hiroki hears a girl that calls him Papa, telling him that she loves him. It turns out that when Hiroki quit the biker life and became an adult, he thought that it wasn't so bad at first. Hiroki has always been the type of person that people liked, and he would return their kindness. He was liked, and he responded in kind, so things always worked out. Eventually he got married, and his daughter Hana was born. This was the first time Hiroki ever cared so much about someone, and he wanted to give Hana everything. Unfortunately, what Hana wanted the most was for her parents to be together forever. In the end, Hiroki couldn't give that to her, as his wife was unhappy. They divorced, and his ex-wife got remarried to the mob boss that Hiroki worked under. Hiroki thought that at least Hana would be happy, because the mob boss would be able to give her everything she ever wanted. He kept his sanity by convincing himself that seeing Hana on their monthly visits was enough for him. Unfortunately, things only got worse when their office was raided by the ninja. Amidst the chaos, a stray bullet from one of their own guys ended Hannah's life. She was still wearing the bracelet that matched Hiroki's, and his entire world was shattered. Hiroki hated every single person that was involved in any way. The ninja, his boss, and even his ex-wife, who took Hannah away. However, more than all of them, Hiroki hated himself for not being able to grow up. Hiroki was an absolute mess after this, and he wished that he could just return to when his life was filled with hopes and dreams. In his darkest moment is when Hiroki met Kawami. Kawami heard about the terrible thing that happened to him, and he blamed the ninja. He recruited Hiroki to the Gokudo and declared that they would eliminate the ninja together. Hiroki snaps back to reality, and Shin prepares to end his life. Shin stops immediately, however, as Hiroki points his gun at himself. He explains that this is his version of a white flag. Hiroki has decided to surrender because Shin is simply too strong, and there's no way that he could win. Hiroki admits that he likes the look in Shin's eyes because they're still filled with life. He compares them to his own, which are dull, pitiful, and exhausted by adult life. Hiroki admits that Shin was right because he is just a loser that was beaten down by the hardships of adult life. This dream his gang had was simply an escape from what they couldn't endure. Stepping on others and causing trouble was the only thing that made them happy because they were lonely hearts that society could never understand. Hiroki now tells Shin to stand back so he can watch the pathetic death of a pathetic loser. Hiroki apologizes to Hannah because his life is going to end now and he won't be going to heaven. This guy is still a psycho though, as he plans to still get his revenge. He fires the bullet into his head, but he also uses his ability to make the bullet dance around the inside of his skull. The bullet ricochets around inside, and Hiroki aimed it, so it would eventually eliminate Shin by surprise. The bullet eventually comes out at the perfect angle, and Hiroki calls this Gokudo skill the end of the world. Shin is insanely skilled, however, so he stops the bullet with his bare fingertips and deflects it into the sky. Hiroki can only wonder how Shin saw it coming, so Shin reveals that Hiroki had a good look in his eyes as well. He could tell that Hiroki was only pretending to be weak, but he couldn't hide his murderous intent. Hiroki concedes that this is just how things were meant to end, and Shin takes his head off. Hiroki is shocked when he appears in front of two stairwells, and he hears a voice. It's Hannah, and she's calling to him from above. Hiroki wonders if he really gets to choose, and he's filled with joy. He can only apologize to Hannah, however, as he goes the other way. He heads down the other stairs because he knows that heaven is not a place that he will be going. Hiroki declares that when a person does bad things, they have to bear the weight of their actions. At the bottom of the steps, Hiroki meets with his old friends, and they all agree with everything he said. They all vow to stay by Hiroki's side, and Hiroki declares that it's time for them to ride into the depths of hell. Shin is surprised that even Hiroki's life ended with a smile, and he admits that this guy was kinda cool. That doesn't matter, however, because there is still a lot of work to do. Elsewhere, we see that Gamut was put to sleep by Shiki's ability. His real name is Terra, and he has a dream about his mother, always telling him how much his parents both loved him. This nice moment is interrupted, however, by a man named Daijin. He points out that Gamut's dream wasn't what his mother was really like, and Gamut is stunned to see all his dead friends. Daijin points out that Gamut's mother never hugged him even a single time, and instead she was really mean to him. Daijin tells him to snap out of his false dream, and instructs Gamut to end the ninja's life. He tells him to avenge his friends, so Gamut comes bursting out of the burning car. Shiki introduces herself, and informs the Gokudo that she will have to end her life. Gamut introduces himself as well, and announces that he's on the side of all the kids with broken hearts. This crazy guy just says that he wants to end people's lives, and he demands to know what's wrong with that. Shiki just puts him to sleep, but Gamut is scared by his friends again. He wakes up immediately, only to find that his life is about to end. Gamut is incredibly skilled, however, so he dodges, and Shiki can only wonder how this guy is waking up. It should be impossible for anyone to break her sleep ability, and Gamut hides nearby. Gamut realizes that Shiki's sending something dangerous through the air, so he covers his face in tape. Shiki wonders if this kid is really going to fight like this, and she is shocked when Gamut's attack is way off. It's clear that this kid is insane, but Shiki knows that she can't let her guard down. She must remain calm, so she can put an end to this Gokudo's life. Gamut is terrifying though, as he hears Shiki, and he lands a direct hit. Shiki wonders if Gamut can see through the gaps in the tape, but that can't be true. If there were gaps in the tape, then Shiki's fragrance would have entered Gamut's eyes. Gamut thinks about how he can see the ninja clearly, because he can see her, even without using his eyes. It's all thanks to how his mother used to show him love. His mom showed him this kind of love every day, and thanks to that he can survive over 30 minutes without breathing. He can sense his surroundings through the tape because his mom loved him so much. Now with Hell's Coupon, this little skill of his turned into a full-blown extra sense. Shiki calms herself down over and over again, but despite all her efforts, she is not able to. This is because things just keep getting worse as her ninja vision shows her something in the distance. It's a terrible sight because she sees Kiwami approaching. Gamut is still focused on the battle, however, so he pleads for his friends to give him strength. This allows him to use his Gokudo skill called Pestilence, and he sends his blade right through Shiki. Shiki is overwhelmed with excruciating pain, and Gamut explains that he cut through Shiki's liver. The pain from this is like nothing Shiki has ever felt before, and it's unbearable. Gamut revels in Shiki's pain, and he realizes that he doesn't like the way her face looks. He says that Shiki doesn't look like a human at all, and he calls her a monster. Gamut cuts her over and over again, and he releases all his anger because the ninja keep taking his friends away. Shiki manages to stop him, and she uses her fragrance skill to push him away. Kiwami arrives, and he's impressed when Gamut reveals that he ended the life of a ninja. Shiki is still alive, however, and she begs for Kiwami to come closer. She hopes that he will want to land the final blow on her because she must make sure his life ends before hers does. Just then, Kiwami's surprised because his body takes a step back on its own. Even Gamut is terrified for some reason, as he says that they should run for their lives. He was sure that he cut Shiki's liver with his pestilence ability, so there's no way that she could still be moving. Shiki refuses to let herself pass away, so she crawls towards them. She vows to end Kiwami's life so that Shin never has to find out who he truly is. Shiki promises to sacrifice her own life so that she can give her enemy eternal slumber. Gamut's killer instinct is going crazy, and he can tell that Shiki is going to release poisonous gas everywhere. He tells Kiwami that they have to run, and we see that Shiki has finally gotten close enough to use her fragrance spell on him. Kiwami's no fool, however, so he listens to Gamut's warning, and they leave. When they're gone, Shiki can't believe how pitiful she is. It was selfish of her to keep the truth to herself, and she was defeated so easily by the enemy. In the end, she let the person that she needed to eliminate the most get away, and this all confirms just how much of a fool she was in life. Her parents lost their lives in a feud between two Gokudo groups, and she became a ninja to save others like herself. She ingested a toxic substance that disfigured her face, but she eventually realized that there was no point in dwelling on things. She always told herself that life was about resignation, so this helped her keep moving forward. Eventually, she met Shin, and he was the first person to ever tell her that she was pretty. She promised herself to never say out loud how this made her feel, but she was at least glad that she could feel it secretly. When her mind returns to the present, she finds that she's in Shin's hands. Shin is of course concerned for her, but she wishes that he wasn't looking at her ugly, dirty face. Shin has always hated how she thought of herself, so he tells her that she's always been beautiful. She never stopped looking forward no matter what, and he always admired her. Shin reveals that he loves her, and he loved the way that she lived her life. Shiki is completely caught off guard by his wonderful words. This is the end of her life full of resignation, but she's in complete bliss. If passing away means that she can be this happy, Shiki says that she would gladly do it over and over again. Shiki's happy to be in Shin's arms, and her life ends with a smile on her face. Shin grieves for a moment, but he quickly becomes furious. He notices that the blade Shiki was holding has tape on it, so he realizes that Gamut is to blame. Nearby, Kiwami says goodbye to Hiroki. He compares his old comrade to someone named Young Kira from the Princess anime. Young Kira was looked up to by shunned rats all over the world. He was defeated by the hero, but his overwhelming charisma and love for his comrades was something that Kiwami admired. Kiwami promises to never forget Hiroki, and he has one last smoke with him. Gamut declares that it's their turn to fight the ninja now, and Kiwami can only wonder what the crazy kid has planned. A while later, Shin has dinner with Kiwami. Shin can't help but notice how fancy this place is, so Kiwami explains that he's celebrating for a friend. This friend of his completed a big project, but unfortunately he couldn't make it to the dinner. There's nothing that can be done about that, so Kiwami says that they should talk to their heart's content about the Flash Princess anime. The show is currently in the Young Kira arc, and Young Kira is a powerful enemy. Young Kira was defeated by the main character, so now a guy named Nemarin is facing off against the enemy leader named Gakamira. Nemarin morphed into human form to confront Gakamira, but the enemy's blade cut him down. This conversation makes Shin really angry because it makes him think about what happened to Shiki. Kiwami can tell that something is wrong, so Shin just says that thinking about Gakamira irritates him. Gakamira is a child of madness, and he was born from the enemy's magic. Gakamira's madness not only affected the heroes in the anime, but his creator too. Elsewhere, Gamut speaks to his mother. He excitedly explains that he has picked his next target, and he has even decided how he wants to end their lives. Gamut needs some advice on how to carry out his plan, and he's delighted when his mother helps him out. Gamut then reveals that his newest target is actually Kiwami, and he plans to end his life along with the ninjas. He excitedly reveals this to his mother, but we see that she's only a corpse. It turns out that Kiwami abandoned Gamut's mother, so Gamut vows to make Kiwami suffer till the very end. At the ninja hideout, Seiko reveals the results of Shiki's autopsy. The cause of her death was organ failure due to a precise stab wound. Yagi is stunned because he thought she was poisoned, but Seiko didn't detect any poison on the weapon that they found at the site. One of her wounds simply reached her liver, causing it to fail. This means that the attacker's skill uses a deadly disease rather than poison. A skill that has only come to light because Shiki was able to steal the attacker's weapon. Shiki put her life on the line to leave the ninja information about the enemy. The transformed Zanzo blames himself as he says that he made a grave mistake by dividing their forces in this battle. There's nothing that can be done about it now, so he just tells Shiki to laugh at their incompetent leader in the afterlife. Shin is absolutely furious as he believes that Gamut was the one that took Shiki's life. Gamut was also the one that took Shin's eye, so Shin knows Gamut's skill very well. Seiko asks about Shiki's investigation into the camera footage, but Zanzo says that they have no information. For some reason, Shiki's computer's locked down tight, and it's impossible to unlock. Afterwards, Shin walks by the same group of kids that are in need of people to join their party. This makes Shin think about the conversation he had with Kiwami when he asked Shin if he had laughed again since that one time at the bar. Of course, the answer was no, so Kiwami recommended that Shin should try to make another friend. Kiwami explained that each new friend he made would provide a new unexpected spark that could change him. This would be beneficial because one of those sparks could bring a smile to Shin's face. Shin took his words very seriously, but he also doesn't know the first thing about making friends. Elsewhere, some suits panic because they have lost track of the Prime Minister named Kansichi. The head of security decides that they have to find him before the media hears about this, and he laments how Kansichi always has him running in circles. Meanwhile, we see that Kansichi has disguised himself. He's very pleased with his disguise, as he says that no one would ever guess that this stylish guy is actually the Prime Minister. In reality, everyone is staring at him, and they all know who he is. Kansichi's completely oblivious, however, and he happily goes to the store he's looking for. It's the Flash Princess store, where he's amazed by the newest selection of memorabilia. Kansichi's overwhelmed by all the choices, and he has no clue on what he should buy. He begins to have a meltdown, but Shin just so happens to appear, looking for the latest Tokyo exclusive edition, Princess Grape. Shin is obviously very experienced, so Kansichi asks him for help. He explains that he's shopping for his grandchild, and he doesn't know what to buy. Shin agrees to help him, so Kansichi explains that he's looking for the blue character, who's also the student council president. Unfortunately, that isn't much information to go on, because a lot of the characters in the show fit that description. Shin shows him all the options, and there are at least 10 of them. Kansichi says that they all look the same, but Shin angrily points out that they're all different, and normal people just don't understand. Kansichi has a lot to learn, so Shin decides to teach him from the very beginning. After showing Kansichi a few episodes, Kansichi finally realizes that Flash Princess isn't just some girly anime. What it really is a rich, profound story of love and friendship. Shin has opened his eyes to something great, so Kansichi says that he will begin his journey to making it through all 17 years worth of episodes. Shin remembers to introduce himself, and Kansichi lies about his identity. He says that his name is Shinosuke, but Shin can call him Shin. Kansichi is very pleased with himself for thinking of a fake name so quickly, but he's shocked by Shin's expressionless face. Kansichi apologizes for making Shin waste his time teaching an old man like himself, and he is certain that it must have been boring for him. Shin tells him that it wasn't boring at all, and the problem with his face is actually that he can't laugh or smile. Shin is then shocked when Kansichi starts spazzing out. He has no clue what's going on, but Kansichi just keeps saying crazy words and striking crazy poses. Kansichi tells Shin not to worry and to just leave everything to him. He declares that it's his duty to protect everyone's smiles, so he keeps acting crazy. Shin assures him that this won't work, but Kansichi's very serious. Unfortunately, he gets carried away when he tries to prove how serious he is, and he reveals his real identity as the Prime Minister. Just then, Kansichi's found by his guards, and he is taken away. Shin is told never to say a word about this, and he's left alone. Afterwards, Shin freaks out about what just happened, but he bumps into someone. This person's really excited to see him, and Shin is shocked when he realizes that it's Gamut. Gamut casually wonders how Shin got his eye back, but Shin is furious. He vows to make Gamut pay, but Gamut stops him. Gamut admits that a fight would be pretty fun, but he knows that there are questions that the both of them want answered. They go to a restaurant, but Shin just wants to know if Gamut was the one that took Shiki's life. Shin nearly loses his mind when Gamut confirms it, but he's surprised when the guy says that Shiki was really strong. She was actually the strongest person he has ever eliminated because she was really close to putting him and his boss to sleep. This is why Gamut had to go all out and eliminate her on the spot. This is the highest honor an assassin can show, but Gamut says that he's more interested in something else. He is now the one to be upset, as he wonders if Shin was the one that eliminated Hiroki. The tension between them begins to rise dramatically as Gamut puts a piece of the Hell's coupon in his mouth. Gamut is sure that Shin eliminated Hiroki because the cut used on Hiroki's neck was the same as the one Shin used to cut Gamut's hand off. They are both filled with rage, and Shin confirms that he ended Hiroki's life. Shin also says that Hiroki was really strong, and Gamut celebrates because the two of them are so similar. Some poor kid nearby heads to the bathroom, and she notices that the two guys are very tense. Shin's anger reaches its boiling point, so he uses an eraser to destroy the cameras and the lights in the restaurant. No one's able to see anything, but they can feel and hear something flying around the room. This is actually Shin and Gamut, who have gone into full battle mode. Their battle's out of control, but Shin still manages to rescue the girl from getting hit by a stray knife. The two guys go toe-to-toe with each other, but they're just too evenly matched. Gamut points out that Shin's famous attacks are even able to destroy Gokudo cars, but for some reason Gamut's blade is fending off his attacks. Gamut is sure that Shin is wondering why, so he reveals what's going on. Gamut explains that he's simply canceling out Shin's strength with his skill. Gamut finally manages to land some attacks, and Shin is shocked because the guy was aiming straight for his guts. Gamut declares that he's a pro with a blade, and he will send Shin to the afterlife in the most brutal way possible. That won't be today, however, so Gamut just leaves Shin to pay for the bill. That night, a mysterious woman says that it's time for something to start. She begins a countdown, and a bunch of crazy kids go on a rampage inside a building. They sing a terrifying song that explains that these kids receive massacre points for ending people's lives. They even get pocket money in exchange for these points. These kids massacre everyone in the building, and one celebrates because he will get 3,000 points for taking out one of the bosses. Outside, the woman continues her countdown and says that there's still people left in the building. These kids are known as the craziest Gokudo, who brought down the Mexican mafia, and they are called the Glass Children. Another boss panics as he realizes that Kiwami's getting revenge for something he did earlier, so he hides in a panic room. Unfortunately for him, there is no hiding from these kids, as he is quickly eliminated. The person that was able to attack him from inside the panic room is actually outside, and he's on someone else's back. The big guy is concerned that his buddy might have hit one of their friends, but the buddy assures him that he can see everyone inside the building clearly. The big guy's name is Attacker, and the guy on his back is named Order. Order simply tells Attacker to line up their next shot, so the Attacker does. Inside, a girl named Ange wonders how many points she will get for her latest elimination, but a kid named Busa has no clue. She put too many holes in her target, and even Busa doesn't know how many points he will get because he just melted a guy. Outside, the mysterious girl announces that 2 minutes have passed. Back inside, some tattooed guy warns that he's really tough, and he tells the intruders to come at him with any weapon they please. These prove to be his final words, however, as a guy eliminates him with a soccer ball. Eventually, time is up, and the girl outside announces that it's time for everyone to leave before the ninjas show up. She says that the job is not done until everyone gets home, and we see that she eliminated several people herself. Elsewhere, Kensichi's totally captivated as he watches the 7th arc of Flash Princess. When he takes a break, he thinks about thanking Shin for showing him such a masterpiece. Of course, a good prime minister must balance his hobbies with his duties, so he takes a look at some paperwork. One issue in particular catches his eye, and this is because it has Shin's name on it. Somewhere else in the city, Gamut can't help but feel that something doesn't feel right. He's already planning to eliminate Kiwami and Shin, but the piece that connects them is missing. Just then, Gamut smells some curry, and it reminds him of his mother. He rushes home, but this just turns out to be the mysterious girl. Her name is Prima, and Gamut tells her to not just walk into people's homes. He's sure that his mother will tell her off if she does it again, but Prima explains that she already said hello to his mother. Prima's just concerned because Gamut only eats candy when he's left alone. She says that he needs to eat properly, which is why as the leader of their group, she's cooking him a meal. Gamut wonders if his mother's really okay with this, and he has no choice but to accept his mother's decision. Gamut hates her healthy food, but Prima just tells him to eat it. She wonders if Gamut has been sleeping properly, but he says that he hasn't slept in 3 weeks. The last sleep he got was on Tato Highway, but it only lasted a few seconds. That's pretty dangerous, so Prima helps Gamut get some rest. The guy named Ballin has brought some food for Gamut, but Prima must tell him to keep quiet. Ballin is surprised to see that Gamut is sleeping, and he points out that the poor kid can only sleep when Prima puts him to bed. He says that Gamut's mind is always running, and Ballin is grateful for him. Gamut is crazier than everyone in their group, and that is actually what saves them. He hopes that Gamut gets all the rest he needs, so that when he wakes up, they can go super crazy again. The next morning, someone informs Shin that he did something amazing. After school, he runs into Kiwami, and Kiwami's amazed when Shin reveals that he has earned the Prime Minister's award. He won this award because of the book report he wrote on the Flash Princess novel. Shin is sure that it was some kind of mistake, but Kiwami assures him that it wasn't. Kiwami really believes in Shin, so he says that Shin should be happy. He wants his friend to be able to celebrate his accomplishment, so he encourages Shin to smile. Winning the Prime Minister Award means that Shin's writing skills go through multiple rounds of judging, so there is no mistake. Kiwami says that Shin is really amazing, but Shin points out that Kiwami is happier about this than he is. Kiwami reveals that his company is even sponsoring this award, and the award ceremony is going to be at the Prime Minister's residence. As Kiwami tries to get Shin to celebrate, we see that Gamut is watching them in absolute shock. His disbelief quickly turns to joy, but he disappears when the guys feel like someone was just watching them. That night, the Glass children have a celebration of their own, as it is once again time to choose who they will eliminate. They treat their targets almost like trading cards, as they each have their own rarities and values. This latest list of targets is amazing, because most of them are ultimate rares, with over 100,000 massacre points each. Everyone's ready to go crazy, so Gamut riles them up even more. He points out that everyone in their group has had their hearts crushed at a young age. It was done by their families, their schools, and by the world over and over again. It's impossible to live like this, and the only way they can live is by taking the lives of others. That is what they'll be doing tonight as well, but he informs everyone that the ninja will likely show up. Gamut tells everyone not to worry, however, because he promises to get revenge for their friends. Everyone then cheers as he vows to eliminate all the ninja. He tells them not to worry even if their lives are ended, because their souls will keep living inside of him. There's nothing else to be said, so he announces that it's time to begin the fun game of taking people's lives. At the ninja hideout, Seiko prepares Shin to go to his award ceremony. It's a very special occasion, but Zanzo points out that the other ninja are getting way too excited about this. He says that it's just a kid's writing contest, but Yagi can tell that Zanzo is happy for Shin on the inside. Yagi reveals that Zanzo was cheering for Shin the night before when he was really drunk, but Zanzo silences him. Zanzo does have a warning for Shin, however, as he points out that he will be going to a very public place. Shin is already well aware of this, and he promises not to blow his cover. Elsewhere, Kiwami wonders why Gamut isn't picking up his phone. He hasn't been showing up to the Gokudo meetings recently, so Kiwami wonders what the kid is plotting this time. There is no time to waste, however, and we see that everyone is headed to the award ceremony. Inside Kensichi's home, he credits Shin for teaching him about the Princess anime series. If it wasn't for him, Kensichi never would have known who his grandchild's favorite is. Secretary Roka fears that Kensichi was playing favorites when he selected Shin as the recipient for his reward, but Kensichi denies it. He says that Shin's writing was genuinely outstanding, and he couldn't stop reading his book report. There is one thing bothering Kensichi, however, and it's that Shin can't smile or laugh. He says that Shin has a straightforward kindness that draws other people to him, but he still just can't smile. At today's ceremony, Shin will stand on Japan's most prestigious stage, and he will receive Japan's greatest blessing, the Prime Minister's Award. Kensichi just hopes that this will bring Shin so much joy that he will finally be able to smile. Elsewhere in the building, Kiwami notices that there are several cops doing pat-downs and police dogs searching for anything dangerous. It makes sense because the Prime Minister is here, and Kiwami must remind himself that he is here to celebrate Shin. He has no Gokudo business to do here, so he doesn't need any weapons or coupons. Kiwami takes a moment to relax, but we see that the dangerous children are approaching. A while later, Shin is given his award, and Kensichi congratulates him. Kensichi shows Shin that everyone is cheering for him, so he encourages Shin to be proud and to be joyful. He hopes that this glorious moment will finally help him smile, so Shin takes a moment to take it all in. Shin feels something he never felt before as he begins to smile, but his moment is interrupted by Gamut. Gamut tells his group to end everyone's lives, so the Glass children begin their massacre. One of them targets the Prime Minister, but another member points out that they can't do that. There is a rule that says they can't eliminate any bigwigs, but another glass child points out that Gamut just lifted the ban. This means that they can go wild, so the girl goes back to targeting Kensichi. Shin rushes to protect the Prime Minister, but so does Roka. Roka sacrificed himself to protect Kensichi, and Kensichi can only cry out to him. The children continue to run wild, and they keep counting their points for their eliminations. The crowd tries to rush out the building, but they only run into more of these terrifying children. Just then, Gamut appears on a TV, and Shin is furious to see him. Gamut introduces himself and the glass children to everyone, and even Kiwami is shocked to see what Gamut is doing. Gamut then reveals that they will be playing a game. It will be all of the glass children versus everyone in the hall. Unfortunately, Gamut reveals that everyone else in the entire building lost their lives during the award ceremony. As for the game, Gamut says that the rules are easy. All the people will have to do is find the time bomb that is hidden somewhere in the building. Gamut then begins a super short countdown, and a bomb blows up part of the building. He explains that that was just a demo, and the real bomb they're looking for is 100 times stronger. They will only have 1 hour to find the real one, so Gamut tells everyone that they will have to work real hard to find it. To make things worse, this evil guy reveals that they will have to do it while the glass children hunt them down. He warns that the kids will end their lives as soon as they are found, so Gamut tells everyone to run as fast as they can. Kiwami's in complete disbelief as he watches, but he still decides that Gamut will get full points for this. Kiwami has always respected Gamut's bottomless potential for evil, so he awards him a full 100 points. However, no one is as evil as Kiwami, as he says that Gamut will get 0 points for his poor timing. Just then, the glass children cover their eyes and count to 100, so they can give everyone a head start. Everyone runs for their lives, but they have no clue where the bomb could be. Roka desperately tells Kensichi to run as well, but Kensichi refuses to leave his longtime friend. Roka insists, however, and Kensichi's guard tells him that they're running out of time. The hall begins to clear out, but Shin is completely frozen. This was supposed to be a nice day, but now he can only watch as Kensichi's friend passes away. Roka says that Kensichi must live at all costs, and he remembers how Kensichi has always been committed to making other people smile. A look into the past reveals a time when Kensichi and Roka were both young men. They were only in middle school, but Kensichi always had big dreams of protecting the people of the nation. The Gokudo were growing in power, but Kensichi was determined to protect the smiles of everyone. Even now, Roka doesn't want to let go of those times, and he promises to support Kensichi forever. Roka says goodbye to his dear friend, and he passes away. Shin is the only person left to watch this, and he becomes furious. Gamut points out that the children finished counting to 100, but there's still one dummy that hasn't run away. The children try to taunt him, but Shin only has one thing in mind. He wants revenge, and the only word that comes out of his mouth is Gamut. The children go in to attack him, but Shin declares that if they lay a hand on any of his friends, he will return the favor 100 times over. This only gets Gamut even more fired up, and he tells the other children to go crazy. Some guards come under their attack, but they are shocked when something stops them. It was Shin, and he thinks about what he needs to do. First, he must rescue the civilians in the building. Then he will have to defuse the time bomb that is hidden somewhere. After that, he will get revenge by eliminating Gamut. Some kids in the hall decide that they will get rid of Shin, but they have no clue who he is. Shin declares that the final thing he must do is end the lives of every one of these people with duct tape on their faces. Nearby, the governor is cornered by the children, but the children are wiped out by Seiko and Yagi. The governor is grateful, but Seiko just tells her to run. Elsewhere, the glass child named Idol wonders what's going on. The other guys can't believe that she wasn't paying attention to Gamut, so they explain that they're trying to eliminate as many people as possible. They only have an hour though, because the bomb on the 4th floor will explode soon. They wonder how many points Idol has racked up so far, but they are shocked when Idol chops their heads off. Idol removes the duct tape from her face, and we see that this is actually the transformed Zanzo. Zanzo feels very uneasy right now, and it's the same feeling that he had on Tato Highway. It's almost as if this war between Ninja and Gokudo is unfolding according to a script that someone wrote. The narrator of the show commends Zanzo for figuring it out, but he explains that the Wheel of Fate cannot be stopped. The first turning point of this entire story will take place in the Prime Minister's residence. This means that fate will eventually push the two men forward. In a bathroom, Kiwami wonders what he should do. He doesn't have a weapon, and he has no coupons on him either. As soon as he exits, Kiwami is confronted by one of the glass children. The guy couldn't be more excited to finally find someone, and he's surprised to see that the guy he found is only worth 100 massacre points. This means that Kiwami's pretty much trash, but the guy says that he needs the points, so he will have to eliminate him. Elsewhere, Prima wonders why Kiwami's massacre points are so low. She points out that Kiwami is Gamut's father, so she wonders why he isn't worth more. Gamut doesn't really mind it being so low, because if they showed his real value, then everyone would just go after him. He isn't protecting Kiwami, however, he just doesn't want all his friends to lose their lives going after him. With Kiwami's abnormal intelligence and intuition, toying with people's hearts is an easy game for him. The app only shows Kiwami being worth 100 massacre points, but Gamut declares that he's a real monster. Back in the restroom, we see just how right Gamut was. The guy that wanted to eliminate Kiwami earlier is now crying and pouring his heart out to him. He says that his family was terrible to him, so Kiwami comforts the guy. This is only an act, however, as Kiwami takes the guy's knife. He gets the guy to tell him that the bomb is on the 4th floor, so Kiwami ends his life. Kiwami then explains that there's only one part of the body that the Hell's Coupon can enhance. It's the 1mm line between the cervical vertebrae, and this was the only way he was able to chop the guy's head off. Kiwami determines that by making this precise cut, he will be able to eliminate all of the glass children without the help of any drugs. Kiwami's disappointed because it doesn't seem like the glass children were taught about this. However, Kiwami remembers that he's their employer and it's his responsibility. Kiwami then becomes very serious as he declares that he was actually number 1 at the time of the glass children's founding. He is their predecessor, and he shocks the poor kid by revealing his true worth. Kiwami declares that back then, he was worth 800,000 massacre points. The evil Kiwami tells the guy to scream if he wants, because he wants him to really feel that fear in his heart. The guy screams in agony, but Kiwami's disappointed because he didn't feel anything. He concludes that nothing can move his heart, not even his own children. He says that he's unable to empathize with anyone, but he remembers something. What he said has been true for his entire life, but things seem different when he hangs out with Shin. Elsewhere, Gamut explains that the ninja will be here soon, so he tells Prima to get to her position. He is trusting her with the most important mission, because she is now his right-hand man. It's time to do what they usually do, so Prima bites his tongue, and Gamut says that he's now motivated. It's time for them to start ending some lives, and Prima vows to give it her all. Elsewhere, Zanzo takes out some more enemies. He is determined to defuse the bomb, but each of these glass children are crazy strong. He knows that this will be a troublesome journey, but there is no stopping now. Just then, something crashes through the ceiling, and it nearly pierces Zanzo. Order's disappointed to see that Zanzo was able to dodge his attack by just a hair, and he's impressed by the ninja. Regardless, Order says that he already has Zanzo's location. He tells the attacker to prepare for the next attack, and declares that there's nowhere for Zanzo to run. Wherever he goes, their divine spear called Gungar will pierce all and kill all. Inside, Zanzo can't believe that an armor-piercing shell just crashed through the building. Those things can penetrate armored tanks, and a direct hit would have ended his life. Order says that he has no hope of running, and he reveals that his Gokuro skill is called Black Box Providence. He's able to hear everyone's location, and even their health points. Order relays Zanzo's coordinates to Attacker, and Attacker takes aim. He uses his Gokuro skill called Iron Punch Cannon, and this fires another shell into the building. Inside, Ainge stops Busa from moving, but he doesn't know why. The shell comes crashing in, and he realizes that Ainge just saved his life. Zanzo takes major damage from the missile, and Order reveals that the Hell's Coupon strengthens his hearing ability. This means that the sound tells him the position of anything in the building. Order and Attacker are a team, and they declare that they will pierce anything. Zanzo, however, has had enough of whatever is happening. He declares that he's one of the 8 Imperial Ninja, and he transforms his arms so they become more powerful. He starts crashing through the walls, and he declares that he will kick the heads off the attackers and play ball with them. Order's amazed by him because he's tunneling his way through the building with his bare hands, but Attacker says that he's still not fast enough. Their next attack strikes Zanzo again, so Zanzo determines that he needs to go faster. At this rate, they will just snipe him before he reaches the roof. Zanzo continues to dodge, and he says that he will have to get up there before the next shot, or there's no chance of him winning. Zanzo knows that he could get there easily if he had a direct route to follow, and he realizes something. Their attacks have been creating holes that lead right to the attackers, so Zanzo just needs to go through them. Order realizes this as well, and he becomes terrified when he senses that the ninja is approaching. The sound is very strange, however, because it almost sounds like a baby. The reason for this is that Zanzo has transformed into an infant because the openings their attacks created were only 30 centimeters wide. Zanzo declares that he can transform into anything and accomplish anything, so even being a baby's no problem. Order tells attacker that they're in big trouble, but it's too late as Zanzo arrives. He transforms back into Idol, and the Gokudo realize that this will be their demise. Order can only wonder what kind of adults they would have become if things went differently when they were younger. A look into the past reveals that Order and Attacker used to play video games all the time. They were best friends, and Order would call out coordinates in the game. This was Order's idea, and it allowed the two of them to beat very skilled foreign teams. They became invincible, and they would go on to win all their games. Attacker's father was forcing Attacker to become a karate world champion, but his father's harsh training always went too far. As for Order, he was set to inherit the family company after he graduated, and he was also going to marry his fiancée because that's what his parents wanted. The two friends hated what their parents wanted for them because what they really wanted was to make a living playing video games. Being pro gamers was their dream, so they were ecstatic when a company offered them a sponsorship contract. The path to their futures wasn't what their crappy parents had in mind. They paved the way for themselves, but their parents wouldn't allow it. Order's mother screeched like it was the end of the world, and she even tried to end her own life. Because of this, Order had no choice but to drop out of the contract. Order apologized to his team, but he was shocked when Attacker showed up outside of his house. Attacker's parents tried to stop him as well, but he refused to give up on their dream. Order decided to go with Attacker, but he was worried, and he wondered if Attacker even knew how to get to Tokyo. Attacker didn't know, but he promised to pedal at full power to get them wherever they needed to go. He then told Order to get directions on his phone. Attacker declared that he would be their arms and legs, so Order would be their eyes. They were more determined than ever, so Order proclaimed that they were going to be pro gamers no matter what. Unfortunately, they were struck by a truck immediately after this. Order lost his arms and legs, and Attacker lost both of his eyes. Attacker screamed in agony as he couldn't find Order, and Order was completely shocked. Order explains that something inside of them broke that day, and they completely changed. Unfortunately, their lives are nearing their ends as Zanzo removes their heads from their bodies. Attacker desperately calls out to Order because he can't feel him on his back anymore. Zanzo explains that snipers are really weak at close range, and this is the reason they were defeated. Attacker continues to call out to Order, just like he did on that terrible day, and Order finally responds to his dear friend. Zanzo can't stand to watch, so he kicks Order's head away. He says that he only did it because he was annoyed, but we see that Zanzo kicked Order's head right next to Attacker's. Order desperately relays coordinates one last time, and the coordinates are just 111. These coordinates are directly in front of Attacker, so Order desperately assures his friend that he's right in front of him. Order says that he will always be by Attacker's side, and they will be together forever. Zanzo has had enough of this corny stuff, so he begins to leave. He declares that the job is done, and we see that Order and Attacker passed away with smiles on their faces. A look into the past reveals that Zanzo had everything planned out. He said that he would infiltrate the building, while Seiko and Yagi made exits for the civilians by breaking walls. Back to the present, Seiko and Yagi eliminate several of the intruders. Zanzo always pairs the brothers up because they're at their strongest when they work together. Seiko reminds his little brother that they have orders to stick together, and Yagi says that he already knows. Yagi hears a girl crying for help, however, and Seiko turns to find that Yagi has already disappeared. Nearby, a woman's life is in danger because the glass children are saying that she is worth 3,000 massacre points. Busa and Ange argue over who will get to eliminate her, but they can't come to an agreement. Their argument devolves into them just insulting one another and calling each other uggos. Ange says that Busa should let her do it because he already has more points than her, but he says that she wouldn't have to beg if she was better with her weapon. Ange says that she is cute, so he should let her do it, but Busa refuses. He says that she's lame for calling herself cute, so she just tells the Uggo to end his own life. They decide that whoever eliminates the girl first will get the massacre points, but Yagi comes crashing through a wall to stop them. He introduces himself as the immortal Electric Man, and he prepares to attack the intruders. Ange is ready, however, so she uses her Gokudo skill, called Fairy Premonition. This ability reveals several scary things on the ground, so she tells Busa to jump. The two of them jump at the same time, and this allows them to dodge Yagi's attack. Yagi just wanted to rescue the girl anyway, so the intruders can only shoot at him as he gets away. The woman wonders who Yagi is, but he just says that he's a hot guy passing through. She is terrified when Yagi throws her out of the window, and she points out that they're on the second floor. Yagi has it all planned out though, as he calls on the ratty boys, and a bunch of rats catch the girl. Yagi's then confronted by Busa and Ange. He notices that they're using acid and a machine gun, but he isn't worried. If they just fire at him, then dodging their shots is easy. Ange can't understand why she keeps missing, so Busa points out that Yagi is reading the trajectory from her gun's muzzle. Yagi determines that he will have to move in closer while dodging their attacks, but they have a plan as well. They combine their Gokudo skills to create an attack called Wandering Bullet of Misfortune. This catches Yagi off guard because the bullets are curving in midair, and he takes major damage from them. Busa uses an acid attack to end Yagi's life, but Ange senses something dangerous, and she tells him to stop the flow of acid. This is because Yagi is able to deflect the attack right back at them, and Ange just manages to save Busa from getting hit. Yagi still took a lot of damage from this, and he realizes that Ange is able to read and dodge his moves. Busa's in complete disbelief because instead of dodging the acid, Yagi countered it with his electricity. Ange points out that Busa wouldn't be alive right now if it wasn't for her, but he just tells the Uggo to keep quiet. Busa determines that he can't use any more acid attacks against Yagi, so from now on, he and the Uggo will have to work as a team. Yagi can tell just how dangerous these two are, so he thinks about how he has been reckless ever since he was a kid. He always moved before he even had time to think, and it always got him into trouble. The fight rages on as Yagi goes in to attack, but Ange's ability sees it coming. They dodge it easily, and this confirms to Yagi that they really can predict his attacks. Ange explains that her skill is sensing danger, and she can see all threats. They fire their wandering bullets again, and Yagi just barely manages to survive. Busa then explains that Acid Mastery is his Gokudo skill. This allows him to melt the bullets, alter their air drag, and bend their paths to his will. These two glass children really hate to admit it because they don't like each other, but they reveal that they're at their strongest when they work together. Yagi's forced to use his ability to stop their bullets, but the fight is not looking good for him. Ange tells Yagi that this is the time to say his last words, but Yagi shocks them with what he says. He says that he can see in their eyes what kind of lives they lived. They have to take the lives of others, and they can't live without doing so. This is the only way for them to stay sane, because their lives were terrible before. He says that he can see all of it in their eyes, but the two of them are not interested in hearing a lecture. Yagi says that he understands how they feel, and he would never try to tell them that other people have it worse, like most people have probably told them. Yagi insists that he gets how they feel, but that doesn't change the fact that he has to end their lives. Busa assumes that this has to be a joke because there's no way that Yagi can do anything after that beating they just gave him. Yagi reiterates that he's going to end them, and Ange becomes terrified. This is no joke, so she tells Busa to get back. Just then, Seiko comes crashing in through the ground, and Yagi says that just like them, he and his brother are at their strongest when they are together. Seiko calls Yagi his stupid little brother because his recklessness got him into another dangerous situation. Yagi declares that it's okay for him to be careless sometimes because he knows that Seiko always has his back. Busa can't believe that there's another ninja for them to deal with, but Ange says that they need to take this very seriously. Busa will have to watch himself because her ability is telling her that these two guys are really scary. Yagi catches Seiko up on their opponent's abilities, but Seiko doesn't fear them. Everyone then takes turns introducing themselves while hurling insults at their opponents. After introductions, the fight begins, and Seiko starts off by using his ability. The intruders are completely confused as they look around because Seiko has created snow somehow. This is just the beginning though, as the brothers prepare to use their combined blade of darkness called Twin Ring. Ange's ability really goes crazy now as she senses incredible danger. Her ability has never shown something this terrifying, and she realizes that there's nowhere to run. Ange immediately turns to look at Busa, and she doesn't hesitate for even a moment. She pushes Busa to safety, and she reminds the Uggo that he needs to stop spacing out. Busa is then horrified as he can only watch while Ange takes the full force of the ninja attack. Ange then thinks about how when she was born, her mother said that she was an angel who will make everyone happy. On the other hand, Busa's father told him that he was a brat born from an affair. Then he poured sulfuric acid on Busa and laughed while saying that now his son was as ugly as him. Ange's family also began falling apart, and her mother eventually blamed her for it. As for Busa, everyone would flinch in public because of his disfigured appearance. One night, some neighbors even said that they were going monster hunting, and they attacked Busa. Ange's mother tried to end her life, so Ange ended up ending her mother's life instead. Busa was attacked by the bullies, but before he knew it, he was bashing their heads open. Ange's mother called her a demon as her life ended, and the bullies called Busa a monster. The two of them have come to realize that beauty and ugliness bring out the cruelty in people. When the two met Gamut, they got to choose their new names. Busa chose his name because it's a poison that annihilates everything that it touches. Ange chose hers because she wanted to be an angel that sends everyone to heaven. Gamut saw that they had similar scars, so he determined that they would make a good team. Back to the present, Busa watches in horror as the ninja end Ange's life. She was the only person that he could ever relate to, so Busa can't hold back the tears. There is no time for him to mourn, however, so he angrily declares that he will eliminate the ninja. He doesn't care what happens to himself anymore, so he vows to melt them with his full power super acid. Yagi prepares for the attack, but Seiko tells him not to worry, and Busa is shocked when his attack doesn't go off. Seiko explains that the moisture in the air freezes and becomes an electrical conduit with their skill. Furthermore, Seiko filled the barrel of Busa's gun with ice. Busa didn't even realize it, but it's too late now, as Seiko ends his life. As his life comes to an end, Busa can only wonder why Ange's face looks so happy. A look into their past shows a time when Ange and Busa bonded while they thought about what else they wanted to be. Now Busa can finally smile again as he realizes that his face is gone. The ninja declares that the fight is over, and we see that the two friends were able to pass away while holding hands. Gamut eventually arrives, and he's disappointed to see that their lives were ended. The artillery fire has stopped, so that means that order and attack are also gone. Gamut tells him not to worry though, as everyone can still live inside of him, and we see all the people that Gamut keeps in his mind. He declares that from now on, the Glass Children's top 3 will have to take control, and they will eliminate all the ninja. Elsewhere, Shin tears through a bunch of the intruders. One of the rats informs him that the other ninja are here as well, so he's relieved to have some help. Shin thanks the little rat for the info, and he instructs it to look for the bomb as well. The rat gets the message loud and clear, and Shin thinks about how he has covered most of the 3rd floor. He determines that the others will be able to handle the lower floors, so he will have to go up. Elsewhere, Kiwami defends himself against one of the Glass Children. It's not easy as he takes damage, but luckily his vital organs weren't hit. It was a close call though, because the blade cut through his high-tech bulletproof vest. He determines that he will have to be careful, and he takes out a piece of the Hell's Coupon. He explains that he took several of them from the stomachs of the Glass Children, and he has been trying to use them. Unfortunately, the stomach acid has ruined their effect, so they only last a second at best. They still come in handy though. Kiwami just needs to time their use correctly. As for weapons, Kiwami only has a knife and a revolver that he took from a police officer, but it only has 2 rounds. Just then, a group of intruders call him their prey, and Kiwami determines that he will get no time to rest. They all charge at him, but something comes flying by, and it ends their lives. Kiwami has no clue what that was, and we see that it was Shin. The two of them are in complete disbelief as they see each other, but Shin quickly remembers that he must hide who he is. He asks Kiwami if he saw what just happened, and says that a black shadow just zoomed by a second ago. The next thing he knew, the scary guy suddenly went down. Kiwami doesn't question him for even a moment, and he's just worried about Shin. He's concerned about the cut on Shin's face, but Shin explains that it stopped bleeding, and his eye didn't even get cut. Just then, this makes Kiwami remember that Gamut squashed the right eye of some blonde guy a while ago. Shin wonders what's wrong, but Kiwami says it's nothing. Shin wonders if Kiwami is hurt, but Kiwami says that he's fine, and he protected himself with some martial arts that he learned when he was younger. Kiwami then reveals that he overheard the bad guys say that the bomb is somewhere here on the 4th floor. Kiwami's determined to disarm it, so he tells Shin to come with him, and he says that he can't leave him alone. Shin meanwhile also has a thought. Kiwami knows martial arts, but he's still a civilian, so Shin decides that he can't leave him alone. The two move forward, but we see that something is bothering Kiwami. The narrator then explains that Heath couldn't shake her suspicions about her friend Abu's true identity. To protect Heath, Abu had no choice but to transform into a princess. Then came the catastrophe that ruined their friendship. As for Shin and Kiwami, even the narrator wonders what kind of end they are heading for. Back with our hero, Kiwami says that there's a room he wants to check. The two begin heading there, but an attack comes out of nowhere, and Shin just barely manages to dodge it. A soccer ball was used for the attack, and we see that Balin was the attacker. He's disappointed after missing, because he was sure that he scored a direct hit. He isn't done yet, so he tells the guys that he will finish them with his ultimate shot. Ballin is sure that he recognizes these two from something Gamut told him, but he can't remember and he decides to ignore it. He plans to score in one shot this time, so he launches the ball again. Kiwami isn't reacting fast enough, so Shin has to save his life. Ballin's attack created a terrifying hole in the wall, and Shin can't believe the destructive power Ballin is able to put into a soccer ball. Shin hasn't encountered anyone like him, and it's clear that Ballin is way stronger than the others. If he doesn't do something immediately, Shin fears that Kiwami will be in danger. However, if he fights here, then Kiwami will find out that he's a ninja. Kiwami thinks about how his reaction speed is terrible without the Hell's Coupon, so he asks Shin if he saw what just happened. Shin pretends like he didn't see it very well, but he does know that they're in danger. He says that it was just his intuition that allowed him to save Kiwami, but Kiwami can't stop thinking. If Shin was able to react to that attack, then it could mean that he's not just a normal person. Besides that, the cut on Shin's eye looks like an old wound that got reopened. Something is becoming more and more obvious, but Kiwami's struggling with his own thoughts. All the clues are lining up perfectly, but for some reason, Kiwami feels compelled to deny it. He can't understand why, and he wonders what is wrong with him. Shin, meanwhile, is still trying to find a way to keep Kiwami safe. He considers just taking him and running, but he knows that they will make easy targets if they move at normal speed. If he goes too fast though, then Kiwami will find out that he's a ninja. Part of Kiwami wants Shin to just tell him the truth, but another part doesn't want to hear. The thought never entered his mind before, but now Kiwami can't stop wondering if Shin is a ninja. Shin, on the other hand, vows to protect Kiwami, but he can't think of a good way to do it without exposing himself as a ninja. Just then they hear a strange noise, and Ballin explains that it's still his turn. He says that his shot curves through anything and bends real well. This means that it can even return to him, so the guys must dodge the ball as it comes up from the ground. It's headed right for Kiwami, but Shin won't be in time to save him without exposing his identity. A look back shows Shin being taught by his grandpa. He learned that Rule 1 of the Great Ninja Principles is that a ninja should always protect people from the shadows. If someone finds out who they really are, then that person must be erased. Shin was told to never forget this, so this rule has been ingrained deep inside of his mind. They are quickly running out of time though, as the ball is about to end Kiwami's life. Suddenly, Shin begins to remember all the times he had with Kiwami. From when they first met, to the time when Kiwami promised to be Shin's friend. Shin immediately makes his decision, so he quickly takes the attack straight to the chest in order to rescue his friend. The attack is devastating, so it leaves Shin in really bad shape. Kiwami rushes to his side, and Shin just says that he's glad that he made it in time to save him. Ballin watches them, and he's amazed to see that the smaller guy somehow managed to survive his attack. Just then, Ballin remembers where he saw their faces. Gamut was the one that showed them to him, and he even told Ballin their names. Gamut instructed Ballin not to bother with the two of them, because they would be too much for him to handle. Ballin didn't like hearing this though, because he wants nothing more than to be useful to Gamut. He now declares that if these guys are strong, then it's all the more reason for him to take them down. Shin's condition is getting worse, so Kiwami tries to tell him to hang in there. Kiwami thinks about how he couldn't even see the attack, but it looks like Shin escaped a direct hit because he's still alive. Kiwami's horrified though, because if Shin is a ninja, then he could survive even a direct hit. Kiwami can't figure out what the truth is though, because he wasn't able to see what happened. What he does know is that Shin risked his life to save him, but another side of him says that it doesn't matter. Part of him wants to focus on the danger they're in, but another part can't stop thinking about the truth. All the signs are there, and they all point to Shin being a ninja. Kiwami's struggle only gets worse, and he wonders why he's starting to remember a certain room. He can't understand what's happening, and his head begins to hurt. He can no longer think straight, so Shin wonders if he's okay. He doesn't look well, so he asks Kiwami if he's getting sick. Kiwami is absolutely shocked by Shin's kindness, and he can't understand how Shin can think this way right now. Shin's close to losing his life, but for some reason he's still worried about him. Shin thinks about how he has no strength left, and if he doesn't get up fast to protect Kiwami, Ballin will attack them again. Just then, Kiwami surprises Shin as he has made his decision. For the moment, Kiwami says that he will trust Shin, so he asks Shin if he will trust him too. Shin is absolutely stunned, but they're running out of time as Ballin prepares his next attack. Ballin's determined to make himself useful to Gamut, but Kiwami declares that he and Shin will get through this together. Ballin begins his next attack, and Shin is stunned because the guy funneled all his power into his legs. This next attack will be the real deal, so Ballin tells our guys that it's game over for them. His kick launches the ball at a violent speed, but Kiwami tells Shin not to move. The ball goes flying right past them, and Kiwami explains how he knew they would be safe. He says that an assassin always saves their best move for the finishing blow, and that wasn't really it. The ball will be coming back soon, but Ballin points out that the path it takes is unpredictable. It will come from anywhere, so Kiwami says that it's Shin's turn now. He will have to use his senses to detect where the attack will come from. Younger people have strong senses that adults have lost, and Kiwami assumes that's why Shin was able to save him earlier. Shin can't believe that Kiwami's willing to trust him over this assumption, but Kiwami reminds him that he's trusting Shin for now. Ballin still says that he will crush them with his steel ball, but Shin is able to detect the direction it's coming from. He tells Kiwami exactly where it is, so Ballin is shocked when the two work together to stop his attack. Shin is amazed by Kiwami's skill, so Kiwami explains that he used Chinese martial art energy transfer to cancel the impact of the ball. On top of that, the jacket and vest on his arm are made of state-of-the-art bulletproof material. Their shock absorption is like nothing else on the market, and he manages to slow down the spin of the ball. Kiwami pops the ball with his knife, and he leaves Ballin in shock. Kiwami paid the price, however, as the ball's force was still strong enough to break his right arm. The dangerous projectile has been eliminated though, so Ballin shouldn't be so dangerous. Shin calls Kiwami crazy for risking his life, but Kiwami points out that the real fight is about to start. Kiwami must then get Shin to safety as Ballin charges at them. This guy has completely lost his mind as he is furious at them for destroying the ball that Gamut gave him. Kiwami knows all about Ballin because he's one of the Glass Children's top 3. He is a dangerous fighter, so Kiwami determines that close combat against him is a bad idea when he doesn't have any proper health coupons. Just then, Kiwami notices that Ballin has a fresh piece of health coupon in his mouth that hasn't been destroyed by stomach acid. He will need to get it because he is sure that the next officers he runs into will be even stronger. Kiwami tells Shin to escape alone, but Shin points out that he's fine now. He isn't in as much pain as before, but Kiwami tells him to use whatever he has left to run away. Kiwami plans to shoot the fire extinguisher to make a smoke screen to give Shin a chance to run. He will also use that moment to take Ballin down, but Shin wonders if one moment will be enough time. Kiwami doesn't answer, but he thinks about how one moment won't be enough. He needs much more time than that, but they don't have that luxury. Shin agrees to run, but Kiwami is stunned when Shin runs right at Ballin. Kiwami tries to stop him, but Shin says that he will distract Ballin to buy Kiwami a few more moments. Kiwami still tells him to run away, but Shin reminds him that they're supposed to get through this together. Ballin tells them to bring it on, so Kiwami shoots the fire extinguisher to distract him. Shin thinks about how he's still in a lot of pain, and he can only manage to run at normal speed. He's determined to protect Kiwami though, so he charges forward. Kiwami meanwhile is amazed by his bravery, and he wonders who Shin really is. He has no time to waste though, so he puts a piece of the used health coupon in his mouth and charges into the fight. Ballin is not amused by their cheap trick because he can just see where they're coming from by how the smoke moves. He sees Shin coming and he wonders if they really thought that they could fool him. Shin charges in anyway, and Ballin is shocked when his headphones are destroyed by something. A look into the past shows Hiroki explaining how his ricochet ability works to Kiwami. It was simple, as he only needed to identify the ricochet point and snipe the bullet with perfect accuracy. Back to the present, we see that Kiwami ricocheted his bullet, and that's what destroyed Ballin's headphones. This makes Ballin wonder if someone is behind him, and Shin is pleased to see him distracted. This allows Shin and Kiwami to attack him from both angles, and they rip his head off. In his final moments, Ballin thinks about how his mother always told him that his father was a great soccer player. His father was never around, so Ballin watched soccer videos every single day. He watched very closely, hoping to see the father that he wouldn't even recognize. He thought that if he became a famous soccer player, then maybe he could meet his father one day. Unfortunately, his mother was miserable, and she hated seeing Ballin happy. She would always say that it was unfair for him to smile because she hated her own life so much. She was alone and jealous, so she would lash out at everyone around her. Ballin desperately didn't want to be like her, so he tried his hardest to be the exact opposite. He was always laughing and cheerful, and his personality was like the sun. Playing soccer brought him a lot of joy, and several pro teams even scouted him. Ballin was elated because he was going to be a pro just like his father, but something terrible happened. His mother turned down all his offers because it was unfair. Her job made her miserable every day, so she didn't want Ballin to get paid for doing something he loved. Ballin couldn't be happy if she wasn't, so she vowed to keep getting in his way until the day that she passed away. Ballin couldn't understand why she was like this, because he just wanted to be a pro like his dad. His mother only laughed after hearing this, because he believed the lie. Ballin's life then completely fell apart as she revealed that his father was never a soccer player. The truth was that he was just a random guy that she met at a bar. Balin totally lost it in that moment, and he can remember how her neck twisted and snapped when he ended her life. His story after that is just like the stories of the other Glass children. After becoming an assassin, he had constant flashbacks every day. It was the guilt of straying from a moral life, and only taking other people's lives could calm him down. His heart was in pieces, and his head felt like it was going to explode, and that is when he met Gamut. Balin immediately broke down in tears because it was clear that Gamut would go crazier than anyone else. That craziness would somehow always save them. Him showing them how crazy he was like him saying that they aren't the only ones who are sad. Back to the present, Shin and Kiwami can't see each other, and they don't know that they attacked at the same time. Shin hopes that Kiwami managed to get away, and he wonders how he was able to eliminate this super strong guy all by himself. Kiwami meanwhile hopes that Shin is okay, and he can't understand how he took down one of the Glass children's top 3 with his own hands. Balin tells Gamut not to worry about him as he passes away, and he tells Gamut to watch him one last time. Our heroes are then shocked when Balin's body begins to move, and Balin calls this his last stand. He declares that they're in overtime, and he lands a kick on Shin. Balin says that the rest is up to Prima and Gamut, so he passes away with a smile on his face. Meanwhile, Balin's kick sends Shin flying off the top floor. There is no way to brace himself, and Kiwami realizes that they're 20 meters off the ground. Falling will mean certain death, so he tries to think of a way to save Shin. Just then, something shocks him, and we see the narrator again. He says that Kiwami should have realized by now that Shin is a ninja. There is no need to rescue Shin, because a ninja won't lose their life from falling at that height. If Kiwami's still uncertain, then this is the perfect chance to let Shin fall and find out the undeniable truth. He declares that this is the beginning of the end, and everything is going according to the script. Just then, a ton of memories flash inside of Kiwami's mind, and he acts immediately. He rushes forward without a second thought, and he even shocks the narrator. Kiwami then screams out Shinataro as he rescues Shin from falling. Shin wonders what he's doing, but Kiwami just vows to not let him go. He explains that Shin gave him everything because he filled his emptiness with so much. Kiwami knows that if he loses Shin, then he will be empty again. Kiwami screams out that he refuses to let go of Shinataro's hand ever again, and he uses all his power to lift Shin up. Just then, the two of them are shocked as they have a shared memory. Shin isn't really sure about what he saw, and Kiwami wonders why he had this memory just now. Shin points out that Kiwami called him Shinataro a moment ago, so he wonders who that is. Kiwami doesn't respond, and he just asks Shin to tell him who he really is. The narrator is in disbelief because the two of them are going off script, and he doesn't know what's going to happen. He can't believe that Kiwami rescued Shin because not even Heath rescued her friend. This is totally unprecedented, and this bond between them has the ability to transcend what is written. This only gets the narrator more excited though, because when a bond like that is broken, there's no telling how the story will end. Back in the building, Gamut makes an announcement. There are only 10 minutes left before the bomb explodes, and he has another challenge for them. He reveals that he has the Prime Minister, and anyone that wants to save him will only have 5 minutes. He tells everyone their exact location, and reveals that he will end his life if no one comes. However, if they succeed in rescuing him, then he will give the time bomb 15 extra minutes. The Prime Minister tells everyone to forget about him, and he tries to give the exact location of the bomb. Unfortunately, Gamut silences him, and Shin determines that he has to rescue Kensichi. Kiwami warns him not to, because even if he does save the Prime Minister, it will only buy them 15 minutes. They have a better chance of surviving if they focus on defusing the bomb first, but Shin has already made up his mind. He tells Kiwami to take care of the bomb because he will save the Prime Minister, even if he has to do it himself. Kiwami says that he can't let him risk his life like that, and the moment gets very tense. Shin comes down to explain that he met the Prime Minister before. He says that Kensichi's a good person, and he tried to make him smile so many times. When they met again today, Kensichi's words almost made him smile again. Kiwami's shocked to hear this, and Shin reminds him that he's doing what Kiwami told him to. Kiwami said that Shin should try to make new friends, so that is why he wants to be the Prime Minister's friend. Kiwami finally understands, so he closes Shin's left eye. He asks Shin to tell him what kind of face he's making, so Shin tells him exactly what he's doing. His correct answer makes Kiwami realize that Shin can still see with his right eye. Kiwami tells Shin to give him a moment, and he goes to gather his thoughts. He determines that Shin isn't the ninja Gamut told him about, because Gamut blinded that guy's right eye. However, that doesn't mean that Kiwami's suspicions about Shin are gone. Kiwami takes a good Hell's coupon from Balin's mouth, and he surprisingly gives it to Shin. He pretends not to know much about it, but he tells Shin that holding it in their mouth is what gives their enemies superhuman powers. He tells Shin to use it in case of emergency, but Shin wants him to use it instead. Kiwami says that he already has some for himself, so Shin agrees to take it. Kiwami takes a moment to lighten the mood before they risk their lives, so he brings up the Princess Anime series. He has inside information about what will happen in the next season, and it's something called Tropicarumba Princess. Kiwami has no clue what it means, but he is sure that next year will be interesting. The two of them vow to watch it, and they promise to discuss it like they always do. Elsewhere, someone loses their mind after hearing about what's going on at the Prime Minister's house. This is where a new battle is raging on, so this guy declares that he will go there and conquer. Somewhere else, a group also sees the news report, and a doctor tells his group that they will be going. In some other place, a strange girl realizes that someone specific is at the Prime Minister's house, and she wonders if she's worthy of going. She has a hard time answering this because she considers herself to just be garbage. Inside of a jet up in the sky, some terrifying girl tells the 8 Imperial Ninja to wait for her because she is almost there. Back in the building, Shin thanks the Ratty Boys for their ninja gear delivery service. The Ratty Boys are just happy to be of service, but Shin realizes that there's only 2 minutes left on Gumut's time limit. There's hardly any time left, but Shin promises to rescue Kensichi. On the 5th floor, we watch as Zanzo battles a bunch of glass children. He's on the same floor as the Prime Minister, but there are too many glass children, and he gets knocked off the top floor. The bomb explodes in 10 minutes, but he's determined to stop it. Elsewhere, Yagi makes an exit, so all the innocent bystanders can escape. He wonders if Seiko gave Shin something important, and Seiko reveals that he did. Seiko says that it's only for a peace of mind though, because avoiding that technique would be best. It will be very dangerous to use, and it has a 99% chance of eliminating anyone that uses it. Back with our hero, he finds Kensichi, but he doesn't see Gamut anywhere. Just then, Kensichi desperately tells Shin to run because there's a bomb in this room. Shin springs into action because they're out of time, and he rescues Kensichi by carrying him out the window. There is no time to relax, however, as Gamut says that he was waiting for Shin. He knew that Shin would be the one to come, and he says that Shin is the person at the top of his hit list. Gamut reminds Shin that he promised to stab him and end his life no matter what. He stabs Shin right through the liver, and Shin is stunned as Gamut uses his ability called Pestilence. Elsewhere, Kiwami confronts Prima, and he notices a time bomb behind her. A sign reveals that the bomb can be defused by cutting one of the wires, and Prima says that she has a lot of things to say to Kiwami. She gets in a strange stance, and Kiwami realizes that her movements are from the Swan Lake Ballet. Kiwami is then horrified as she uses her ability called the Manifestation of a Radiant Fantasy. Kiwami can't understand what's happening, and he wonders what this scene is in front of him. He tries to make sense of it all, but it's too late as Prima kicks a giant hole through his body. Kiwami coughs up blood, and Prima says that she will have to wait to tell him what she wanted to say. For now, she will just do her best to carry out the task at hand. Meanwhile, Gamut tells Shin that he's done for. Shin is upset because he was being super cautious, but in the end, Gamut caught him at the worst time. Gamut's ability begins to take effect, so Shin is forced to return to the building to protect Kensichi. Shin wonders if the Prime Minister is okay, but Kensichi points out that Shin is in really bad shape. Furthermore, he's in disbelief because Shin showed incredible speed when rescuing him. A normal human could never do that, so he begins to wonder if Shin is a ninja. Unfortunately, Shin is struggling to even stay conscious, so he can barely answer. He says that he messed up because he changed into his uniform, hoping to hide what he really is. Kensichi realizes that Shin wants to keep it a secret, but it's too late. Shin thinks about how terrible this is because Kensichi found out that he's a ninja. This means that according to the ninja code, Shin will have to end Kensichi's life. Shin's life is slowly fading away, but Kensichi refuses to let him die, and he reminds him that they are friends. Just then, Kensichi's horrified as he hears Gamut searching for them nearby. Shin determines that Gamut knows he can't move, so he's probably just toying with them. Shin curses the situation because if he just had a few more minutes, then he could do something about his body. Just then, Kensichi notices that something fell out of Shin's pocket, and he wonders what it is. Nearby, Gamut wonders where his target is, and a guy in the shadow says that his target is right here. The guy says that Gamut is committing disorderly conduct, but worst of all, he made his friend into a victim. He says that this is unacceptable, but Gamut just wonders who this guy is. The guy comes out of the shadows, and he wonders if Gamut already forgot what his face looks like. This turns out to be Kensichi, and we see that the crazy Prime Minister put the hell's coupon in his mouth. Gamut doesn't know what to make of this, and Kensichi shockingly attacks him. The powered-up Prime Minister manages to put a crack in Gamut's skull, and he declares that he's Kensichi, the protector of Japan. A new power flows inside of Kensichi, and he's amazed by what the hell's Coupon can do. He has Gamut backpedaling, so the overpowered Prime Minister rushes in to end the fight. Unfortunately, Gamut easily stops him and reveals that he was just pretending. He goes on the offensive now, and he absolutely destroys Kensichi. Gamut says that it's all over now because the bomb will go off in just 3 minutes. Nearby, Prim is in disbelief to see that Kiwami can still stand up. His guts are spilling out of him, and he's near death, so she can only wonder why he doesn't give up. Kiwami's insulted by the question, and he prepares to give her his answer. Kensichi, meanwhile, isn't giving up either, as he grabs Gamut while saying that he isn't down yet. We then see Shin in a dark room as he suffers from the effects of Gamut's pestilence ability. He seems to have an idea to solve his problem, so he sets himself on fire. Kiwami answers Prima by saying that he promised Shin that he would disarm the bomb. Kensichi has something to reveal as well, as he says that all he's doing is buying some time. He will never allow Shin to die, so he will stop Gamut right now. We then watch as Kiwami and Kensichi both declare that they are doing this for their friend. Kiwami struggles to stay alive with the giant hole in his body, and Prima doesn't make it any easier. Her ability changes the scene again, and Kiwami begins to wonder if he's hallucinating. Prima tells him to just hurry up and die because she will tell him something as he takes his last breath. Kiwami refuses, of course, and he apologizes because he's going to do something terrible to Prima. He comes under attack again, but he tells himself that Prima is probably just creating these illusions. He recognizes this scene from a ballet, and he realizes what's going on. Prima's Gokudo skill, boosted by the coupon, is the power of expression. Her divine dance, powered by her incredible physical prowess, conjures an illusion of a scene from the ballet. He determines that if he knows it's an illusion, then there's nothing to fear, so he charges into attack. One of the monsters passes through him, confirming that it's an illusion, but something doesn't feel right. Prima can tell that he's scared, even though he knows it's an illusion, and she attacks him again. Kiwami determines that the illusion is so vivid that his instincts are screaming that his life is in danger. It would be too dangerous to fight her blind, because the physical disparity between them is just too great. Prima doesn't even want him to give up anymore, because she wants to make him feel the ultimate despair. She promises to make him feel a despair that's 1,000,000 times greater than what Kiwami showed Gamut. Her illusion creates a giant beast, and Kiwami reminds himself that this is not real. It's no use though, because the sheer amount of visual input is messing with his mind. Kiwami is desperate to keep moving forward, so he rushes to find a solution. Just then, Kiwami remembers how wise Yazawa was, and he listens to his words. Yazawa says that if Kiwami overthinks things, then he won't be able to act when it counts. There are certain things that only a fool can do, so he says that they should be fools and move forward. Kiwami's inspired by these words, so he declares that they will go together and rush forward. Prim is shocked by his decision to rush in to meet his demise, and she wonders if he snapped already. Kiwami is actually turning the tables on her though, as she now sees him as a charging knight. Kiwami is well versed in this scene from a certain play, so he calls himself the hero of it. Kiwami heroically prepares to defeat his enemy, but Prima surprisingly just stabs him right through the chest. She wonders if Kiwami's really this stupid, but he stuns her by taking a hold of her face. He pushes himself closer to her and declares that he has won the fight. Kiwami kisses her out of nowhere, so Prima can only wonder what this crazy guy just did. He reveals that he just took the hell's coupon straight out of her mouth, and she is shocked as Kiwami begins to power up. Prima tells herself that it's still okay because the coupon's effects still linger inside of her. She gets ready to use her ability again, but it's too late as the powered up Kiwami launches one of the buttons off of his shirt. His target was the wires on the bomb, and his attack revealed something Kiwami suspected. The wires on the outside are a decoy, and the bomb won't stop no matter how many of the wires are cut. It's a taunt to those frantically trying to stop it, and Kiwami says that that is definitely something that Gamut would do. Kiwami heals himself with the power of the Hell's Coupon, and he demands to know which wire inside of the bomb needs to be cut in order to stop it. Kiwami's feeling much better now, so he reminds Prima that they forgot their manners. He formally introduces himself, and he wonders if Prima would like to dance. Prima introduces herself back, and she immediately uses her Gokudo skill. Kiwami determines that this giant is the best she can do, but looking at it now, it seems a lot smaller than before. Kiwami immediately destroys it, and Prima is horrified because he also cut off her left foot. This foot was incredibly important to her because it's the foot she danced on all her life. It's the one that supported her through thousands of pliés, so she can only wonder what Kiwami has done. She can no longer dance ballet, so she begins to fall apart. Just then, Prima gathers herself as she says that she doesn't care, and she charges back into the fight. She fights with everything she has left, and she thinks about how Gamut told her to keep the bomb safe for him. He is counting on her as his strongest right arm, so she refuses to back down. Kiwami's able to keep up with her now, but he notices that he's running out of time. Prima pushes him back, but she quickly realizes that he just moved back on purpose. She tries to think of a reason why, but it's too late. Kiwami's knife cuts right through her and cuts some wires on the bomb. His throw was absolutely perfect because it stopped the bomb with a tiny fraction of a second left. The bomb is finally defused, so Kiwami's pleased after keeping his promise to Shin. Prim is shocked after seeing how Kiwami was able to defeat her while also disarming the bomb, but she just can't give up. She can still strike back one last time, so she launches her own head at Kiwami. It's not an attack though, because Prim's idea is much more sinister. It turns out that Gamut told her to reveal who Kiwami's friend really is if she was defeated. Gamut had this all planned out, and his goal was to drop Kiwami into the depths of despair. Prima does that now as she begins to reveal the truth, but it's too late. She has no life left, and the last thing she can do is bite down on Kiwami's neck. Kiwami wonders what she was about to say, but he decides to just move on. Prima apologizes to Gamut for not accomplishing her mission, and she thinks about how he will have to tell Kiwami himself. In her final moments, Prima thinks about how she went to that ballet with her family when she was younger. She admired how it looked like the dancers were flying, and she thought that she too would one day soar in the sky. Prima had an ordinary family, and her life was happy and carefree. Unfortunately, her brother went crazy out of nowhere after failing some exams. He then spent all the money her parents saved up for her so she could study ballet abroad. Then after all that, he eliminated their parents. Prima was totally lost, so she decided to get revenge on her brother and then take her own life afterwards. She had no hope for herself, but that is when she met Gamut. She was in awe of the way he leapt, and it looked like he would soar forever. Prima had never taken a life at the time, so Gamut was the one that helped her get revenge on her brother. Then he gave her a new life as part of the Glass Children. After that, she took many lives because she desperately wanted to repay Gamut. She wanted to stay by his side forever, so she did whatever had to be done. Prima can now only apologize to her parents because she chose the worst life a person could live. She wonders what kind of person she would have become if things were different, and she is shocked when she wakes up on a plane. She was having a really weird dream, and some random girl asks her for her autograph. Prima's a world-famous ballerina, so she happily gives the girl her autograph. The girl desperately wants to be a ballerina, just like Prima, so she wonders how she can make that dream come true. Prima is very honest, as she explains that dreams can't come true. Prima dreamed of becoming the main ballerina for a certain company, but she never did. She is still a successful ballerina, but her ultimate goal was never reached. The girl wonders what went wrong because she is such a good dancer, so Prima explains that she has made several mistakes. She says that people face many unexpected misfortunes in life. This causes them to lose their composure, and they end up choosing the wrong path in life. Prima determines that her life now is her punishment for making all those mistakes. The girl wonders if she has any regrets, but Prima surprisingly doesn't. She lived her life to the fullest, so she tells the girl that she also has to be ready for her dreams not to come true. However, that doesn't mean that she can't live her life to the fullest also. On her way home, Prima receives a call from her husband, and she wonders if marrying him was really the right choice. They haven't seen each other for half a year, and now he's saying that he has to work overtime. It's an important project, so he can't give her the feast that he was talking about. Prima happily says that she will just make him dinner instead, and she tells him not to be picky when she puts a lot of vegetables in the food. Back to reality, Prima is no longer alive, and Kiwami says that what she did was unfair. Prima put him through a nightmare just now, but it seems like she's in total peace. She is even smiling, so Kiwami can only wonder what sweet dreams she is having. Elsewhere, Gamut is furious that the bomb didn't go off, but Shin is relieved. He knows that it was Kiwami, and he thinks about how amazing his friend is. The fact that Kiwami can do anything really makes him feel safe. Gamut, on the other hand, is horrified because this means that Prima was defeated. Kiwami didn't have a coupon this entire time, so this was their once-in-a-lifetime chance to eliminate him. Gamut was sure that Prima was going to win, so he can't handle the reality of their failure. Gamut becomes enraged because things are always like this for them. Right at the crucial moment, fate turns against them. Gamut knew that this fight would be their last desperate struggle, so he announces to all the Glass Children that playtime is over. He tells them to go wild and to take as many lives as they want. Several of the intruders try to attack the Ninja Brothers, but they just get annihilated. The battle isn't easy though, as Yagi points out that the Glass Children are like fish who just found water. There are an endless number of them, and our heroes are getting overwhelmed. Zanzo has his hands full as well, because this is the first time he has had to fight so many skilled fighters all at once. No matter how far he reaches, he doesn't have enough hands to eliminate them all. The enemies just keep swarming him, and he doesn't know how long he can last. Outside, we see that someone has arrived, and she tells her techno pretty boy army that it's time to advance. At the front of the building, two glass children discuss how fun it is to guard the entrance. They are able to easily rack up points just by waiting for the riot police. Their names are Yuri and Lily, and they wonder which one of the cops wants to get eliminated next. Just then, one of the cops urgently reveals that they have a problem. A huge group has arrived, but it doesn't make any sense, and he has no way to explain it. There are over 100 of them, and it's a huge group of handsome men marching towards the Prime Minister's house. Yuri and Lily are then shocked, as these men all jump over the front gate. It's their job to stop them, but the girl in charge tells the handsome men to eliminate the glass children. Yuri and Lily can only wonder who they are, and the girl reveals that they are ninja. She introduces herself as Tomei of the 8 Imperial Ninja, and she apologizes for making them wait. Inside, Zanzo sees that the techno pretty boys have arrived, which means that Tomei is here. He says that they are late, so he tells them to get to work. Zanzo is annoyed, and it's because of rule number 2 of the Great Ninja Principles. It says that a ninja must rely on their body alone in battle, not weapons. Tomei ignores that rule, and Zanzo doesn't like it one bit. However, he does acknowledge that she comes in handy. Her techno pretty boys are perfect for battles that are so widespread like this. He explains that Tomei's uniqueness lies in her brain because her brain is the most advanced in human history. She can process data from over 100 mechanical dolls all at once and use brainwaves to control them. In other words, it's a modern cloning technique created by a superior intellect. Meanwhile, Tomei relaxes as she watches her pretty boys do all the fighting. Yuri and Lily determine that Tomei is the boss, so if they take her out, then the fight will end. Lily is caught off guard, so she's about to lose her life, but Yuri sacrifices herself to protect her friend. As Yuri's life comes to an end, she says that they should eliminate Tomei together using her knife. Lily agrees, so she takes Yuri's knife right before her life ends. Lily vows to end Tomei's life for the both of them, but Tomei isn't some bum. She easily dodges the attack and reveals that she has rockets on her feet. Lily says that this is cheating, but it's too late. Tomei uses her blade of darkness, called the Invincible Love Cannon, and she takes Lily's head off. Just then, Lily thinks about how a teacher used to harm them, and they only got through it because the girls were together. They got their revenge, and they think about how they only lived this long because they had each other. They promise to stay with each other forever, and they pass away with smiles on their faces. Even Tomei can tell that the two of them went through a lot together, so she gives them her sympathy. She doesn't give them her mercy though, so she announces her victory. Elsewhere, Gamut is horrified as he hears that his glass children are losing the fight. Kensichi can sense that the fight is turning because of the ninja, and he wonders if Shin's friends have arrived. Kensichi tells Gamut that he should surrender now, and he will even give in to his demands to put an end to all of this. Gamut doesn't seem interested, but Kensichi thinks he knows what's going on. He assumes that this country has made Gamut mad, so that is why Gamut is trying to change things. That is why he's committing these atrocities, so Kensichi offers to hear what kind of changes he wants. Kensichi is sure that there must be something he can do for the glass children, but Gamut says that there's nothing he can do. Kensichi surprises him though, as he wonders who Gamut thinks he is. Gamut seems to think that he can't help them, so Kensichi reminds him that he's the Prime Minister of Japan. His words seem to get through to Gamut for a moment, but Gamut snaps out of it, and he says that it's too late. He goes in to end Kensichi's life, but Shin comes out of nowhere to stop him. Shin declares that it's time for round 2, but Gamut is confused. He hit Shin with pestilence earlier, so he shouldn't be able to move. Just then, Shin reveals what he did. First, we see that Seiko was the one that told Shin how to stop Gamut's Gokudo skill. The answer to stopping it was abdominal surgery using Blade of Darkness. All Shin had to do was realign his own liver and stitch it together himself. That is why Seiko gave Shin some of his hair in an envelope so he could use them for the sutures. There is a secret elixir inside of the hair that makes his family's hair sterile. It integrates within the body even better than any thread. However, Seiko warned that no matter how fast the procedure was done, it would take at least 10 minutes for anyone other than Seiko. This meant that someone would have to buy Shin some time, so that is why Kensichi risked his life. Shin now credits Shiki because she was the one who sacrificed herself to leave behind a hint about Gamut's skill. Gamut is surprised because this is a first. He calls Shin an idiot because he wants to fight again, even after being hit with pestilence. Shin charges into battle, and he thanks all his friends that allowed him to have this moment. Gamut charges in as well, and he declares that he's never wanted to eliminate anyone this bad before. The final battle begins, and the two fighters collide with each other. A look into the past shows when Kiwami and Gamut first met. Kiwami wondered who the kid was, so Gamut explained that he was Kiwami's son. He blamed Kiwami for making his mom go crazy, and he said that Kiwami was the last of his mom's grudge. Gamut's rage was unstoppable, so Kiwami simply knocked him out. Kiwami still saw potential in him, so he instructed a kid named Daijin to put Gamut in his glass children group. Kiwami went to Gamut's house, and he found the truth inside of Gamut's room. His walls were covered in pictures, and they were pictures of Gamut's 5,000 fathers. The explanation behind all of this was revealed when Kiwami saw who Gamut's mother was. Her name was Ririn Kimura, and she was known as the Man-Eater. She had several male partners, so this had a terrible effect on Gamut. Kiwami's relationship with Gamut was very complex, as Gamut tried to end Kiwami's life every chance he got. There was a Gokudo researcher, and he watched the relationship very closely. As Kiwami punished Gamut for trying to end his life, the researcher said that it was how Kiwami showed his love. Kiwami never felt any emotions toward others, and he wouldn't even fake a smile for Gamut. This was proof that Kiwami was showing more sincerity to him than to anyone else. The researcher received the test results, revealing if Kiwami was really Gamut's father, but Kiwami refused to look. He said that he already knew the truth, and he was sure that Gamut was his son. Meanwhile, Gamut declared that he would one day surpass Kiwami. He would force Kiwami to acknowledge him, and even just once would be enough for Gamut. He was determined, and he vowed to make Kiwami acknowledge him with a genuine smile. Back to the present, Shin goes to battle against Gamut. The other ninja watch closely as their battle intensifies, and Gamut surprisingly gets pushed back. Gamut can't understand what's going on because for some reason, it's getting harder and harder for him to block Shin's attacks. Shin explains that he's had a lot of people help him, so now he understands Gamut's fighting style. Gamut's blocking technique is energy transfer that is commonly used in martial arts. Shin knows this because it's a technique he learned when he saw his friend use it. If the user times it right, then they can cancel out the attack's energy. Shin uses this to his advantage, and he begins to overwhelm Gamut. Gamut can't believe that Shin is hitting him with some instant combo attacks because it's just one attack immediately after another. To make things worse for him, Shin changes the timing with each attack, so it's hard for him to anticipate. Just then, Gamut realizes who Shin must have learned the blocking technique from. There aren't many people that can do it, and Shin thanks his friend Kiwami for showing him. Shin really takes control of the battle now, and he tells Gamut that the tape is falling off of his face. Suddenly, Gamut has a memory about what the researcher told him. He wanted Gamut to try something, but it was incredibly dangerous. So much so that only someone with the mind and body chosen by a demon would be able to withstand it. The researcher was confident, though, that with Gamut's hatred running so deep, he would be able to make it happen. After Gamut agreed, the researcher told him to wait until he found an enemy that he would give his life to eliminate. Once Gamut found someone like that is when he should use it. Gamut determines that the time is now, and he immediately strikes Shin. Shin can only wonder where this insane speed and power is coming from, as Gamut's attack nearly ends him. Gamut declares that he doesn't care anymore because he no longer needs to live. It would be enough for him to just survive 1 second longer than Shin. Gamut reveals that he has taken the forbidden double dose of the Hell's Coupon. It has insane side effects, but he vows to end Shin's life, even if it kills him. Gamut imagines himself speaking to Daijin, who's glad to see that he's finally ready to sacrifice himself. Gamut confirms that he will now die in 5 minutes, and he can't help but feel ashamed. Daijin tells him not to worry though, because Gamut always wanted to be the tape that held the children's broken hearts together. Daijin tells him that he's done enough, so he removes the tape from Gamut's face. He says that the tape that was binding him is now gone, so Gamut can finally fight for himself. Gamut wakes up, and he realizes that he just blacked out. He reminds himself that he just kicked Shin into the sky, so he wonders if he escaped. Just then, Gamut has a vision of Attacker and Order. They remind Gamut that they fought together for years, so he knows how to use their abilities. They encourage him to use it, so Gamut takes their weapon and uses their Iron Punch cannon. Nearby, we see that Shin is running for his life because Gamut struck him right in the wound that he received when fighting Ballin. He needs some time to recover, but unfortunately he won't get it. Gamut's attack strikes him, and the crazy kid appears behind Shin. Gamut is amazed by the power of the double dose because he was able to get here before the missile even did. The two begin to battle again, and Shin can tell that Gamut is targeting his stomach. Shin refuses to let him, but he just ends up getting crushed. Gamut continues his barrage, and he uses Angel's ability to see someone's sneak attack coming. He stops their attack, and Busa is the next to help him. Busa tells Gamut to shoot his corpse because it's filled with acid, and they can use that to attack Shin. Gamut is hesitant to shoot his friend, but he does it when Ange gives him her blessing. The attack is the wandering bullets of misfortune, and Shin desperately evades it. Gamut is annoyed by how stubborn Shin is because he just wants to cut his liver again. Shin isn't letting him, so Gamut determines that he will just have to tire him out first. Gamut starts pushing Shin back, and he wonders why the ninja are always eliminating the Gokudo. He says that the Gokudo just like taking people's lives sometime, and he doesn't understand what's wrong with that. Shin calls him an idiot because the answer should be obvious, but Gamut just kicks him into the sky again. Gamut declares that it would be impossible for him to understand because the answer is just nonsense that is spewed by people that are blessed with good lives. Him and his friends were also young when their hearts were crushed, so it's impossible for them to understand. There was nothing that could save them, and their hearts were crushed to pieces. Just then, Shin is stunned as Gamut crushes a fire hydrant into the shape of a ball. Shin knows what's coming, but it's too late as Gamut uses Ballin's Gokudo skill. The ball nearly takes his head off as he dodges it, but Shin knows that the attack isn't done. He has to dodge it over and over again, but this is all too much. It's a barrage of Gokudo skills, and Shin realizes that he's quickly running out of stamina. Gamut angrily explains that someone crushed their hearts, so now they have to take lives just to stay sane. He says that these are the creatures they are, and they were just made this way. His rage is overwhelming our hero, but Shin finds an opening. He lands a powerful kick, but he is shocked when it does nothing to Gamut. Gamut just sends him flying, but Shin realizes something. He says that the ninja were also made a certain way, and that is why they fight the Gokudo. Gamut is determined to strike Shin's liver, so he uses Primo's Gokudo skill this time. He creates an illusion, and this is Shin's first time seeing it. He is still confident that he can win, so he tells Gamut to bring it on. They charge at each other once more, but this time Shin is able to break Gamut's blade. He says that Gamut can't stab him anymore, but he is shocked when Gamut reveals another weapon. Gamut didn't want to have to use this, and we see that he pulled the blade from his fake hand. He explains that a legendary swordsmith made this weapon, and it's called the Dagger of Mutual Life. Elsewhere, Kiwami senses that Gamut took the forbidden dose of the Hell's Coupon. Kiwami knows exactly what this means, so he can only wonder who Gamut is fighting against. Just then, explosions occur around the building, and some of the ninja find that someone has arrived. The main battle rages on, but now the fighters are evenly matched. The effects of the double dose are taking a toll, as Gamut can feel his life draining away with every attack. Gamut thinks about how he must acknowledge Shin because he's really powerful. He is narrowly blocking all these attacks that Gamut is betting his life on. Gamut is done underestimating him, which is why he must make sure that he wins. Just then, Gamut notices a slight pattern in Shin's movements. It's thanks to his years of fighting, so he prepares an attack that will break Shin's guard wide open. It takes a special combination of attacks, but eventually Gamut is able to expose Shin's stomach. He rushes in and tells Shin to get a taste of his pestilence. Suddenly, Gamut is surprised as he begins to see an image. He doesn't understand why, but he says it doesn't matter. He just has to go for it, so he charges forward, but Shin ends up chopping off his other hand. Shin surprisingly reveals that the slight pattern Gamut saw was just something he faked on purpose. Shin was confident in Gamut's strength, which is why he knew that Gamut wouldn't miss the slight pattern he created. Gamut is in really bad shape now, as he also realizes that the double dose is starting to wear off. Shin declares that Gamut messed with his friends, so it's time for him to pay Gamut back 100 times over. Shin releases his full barrage of strikes, and Gamut has no way to defend himself. Our hero thinks of all the people close to him that lost their lives, and he vows to eradicate Gamut for them. Shin's final strike sends Gamut crashing to the bottom floor, but our hero knows that he's still alive. He says that he must finish the job, but his body has nothing left to give, and he collapses. Shin is found by Tomei, and we see that Gamut is found by Kiwami. Kiwami sees that Gamut is in really bad shape, and he determines that even the double dose was not enough for him to match the power of a ninja. Kiwami is surprisingly not upset about everything that took place here, and he tells Gamut that he did a good job. The Glass Children are an unfortunate group of kids whose hearts were broken by society. They are lonely souls who must take lives to keep balance in their souls. Gamut set them on the best prey on the country's ultimate hunting ground, and he unleashed destruction beyond his teaching. It was thanks to Gamut that Kiwami was able to hear the cries of the lonely. He tells Gamut once more that it was a job well done, and he tells him to rest in peace. Gamut is horrified though because those aren't the words that he wanted Kiwami to say to him. Just then we see that Shin is watching the two of them from above. He can't hear what they're saying though, so he tells the others that Kiwami is his friend. He's the first friend Shin has ever made, and Shin fears that Kiwami's in danger. He wants to go help him, but Tomei surprisingly stops him. One of her men analyzes Kiwami, and Tomi confirms what she feared. She immediately realizes that this will destroy Shin, so she doesn't look forward to telling him, and she wonders what she should do. Kiwami wonders if Gamut has any last words, and Gamut can only say that Kiwami taught him so many ways to destroy. None of that will help him now, but Gamut declares that he still has one way to hurt Kiwami, and that is by revealing the truth. Up above, Shin can't believe his eyes when Tomi reveals the truth to him. Shiki sent her a picture of the person that ended the life of Shin's grandpa, but Shin can't believe it. It's a picture of Kiwami, and Shin struggles to understand why. The truth is finally being revealed to the both of them at the same time, as Gamut loudly declares that Shin is a ninja and Kiwami's a Gokudo. Kiwami can only commend his son Gamut because he really found a way to destroy him. Gamut begins to tear up as Kiwami finally smiles at him with sincerity, and that was all he ever wanted. Gamut can finally leave this world, and he passes away with the biggest smile on his face. Just then, we see an alternate timeline where the lives of the glass children took a very different turn. Gamut is a normal kid, and he works a normal 9 to 5. Kiwami is his co-worker, and the two of them are good friends. Ballin is a famous soccer star, but none of the other Gokudo know each other. They're all pretty happy living normal lives though, and Ballin still happily believes that his father is watching him. Even Busa is a completely different version of himself, and he apologizes to Gamut because something slipped out of his hand. A totally different version of Ange is there as well, but the two of them are still arguing like always. Busa calls Ange an annoying hag, and she tells him that he looks really creepy being this buff. He tells her to stop eating donuts because she's fat and ugly, but she blames him for her bad eating habits because he's such a pain. Busa eventually gets fed up with her, but instead of leaving, he proposes to her. Busa says that Ange is really irritating, and he doesn't find her the least bit attractive, but somehow she's the only person he cares about. He says that is why he has to marry her, and the entire crowd cheers for them. Nearby, some kids watch a live stream of a professional video game tournament. The stars of the show are Attacker and Order, and they both have contracts with a big organization. They prepare for their match, so Order promises to be their eyes, and Attacker promises to be their arms and legs. Gamut watches everyone in disbelief because for some reason, they're overflowing with happiness today. Afterwards, Gamut parts ways with Kiwami, and Kiwami says goodnight to his good friend. He says that Gamut lived a great life, so now he can rest peacefully in this dream. On his way home, Gamut thinks about how ordinary his life is. He doesn't mind though, because it's the reason he was able to meet Kiwami. When he arrives at his front door, he's delighted to smell that curry is being made. When he enters, Gamut couldn't be happier, as he is greeted by his mother. Back to reality, the researcher says goodbye to the noble child of resentment. He tells Gamut not to worry because they will avenge him, and he turns to Kiwami. He sees that Shin has jumped down from the top floor as he is furious, and he's ready to end Kiwami's life. He demands for Kiwami to tell him how he can be a Gokudo, but Kiwami just says that he sounds like Heath from the Princess anime. Because of that, he will answer Shin with one of her lines. He quotes Heath by saying that he doesn't believe this either. He then questions how his dearest friend could be his mortal enemy. Just then, the other ninja get pushed into the same room as Shin as they have come under attack. Some fearsome-looking enemies have arrived, and Kiwami declares that they are the 8 Gokudo of destruction. 5 of them remain, and Kiwami says that from here on, they will each do evil on the ninja's turf. They will have no mercy, so the ninja will have to try and stop them. Tensions begin to rise between the two groups, so Shin and Kiwami charge at each other. The narrator watches very closely, and he determines that it's finally time to decide who will control the underworld. In the fight between the ninja and the Gokudo, he can only wonder who will triumph and who will perish. Thanks for watching my recap of the first season of this anime. Make sure to like the video.